Good morning. If we could settle down, thank you. We just wait a minute for a few guys that are signing in. Good morning to everyone. My name is Tanyara Muganiwa. I'm the director at the Commercial Farmers Union. I'd like to welcome all of you and thank all of you for taking time out to join us and support us on this very important day, which is the Congress for CFU. It is important to show commitment and togetherness on an agenda that we all agree is very, very critical to us as individuals and collectively as a nation. And we do not take it for granted that you've taken time out to be with us here today. Our guest of honor has run late. They're on their way. Oh, okay. Sorry, it's just arrived. Okay, so it's good that we are properly constituted now. So before we begin, if I may ask all of us to stand for the national anthem. Thank you very much. If you may take a seat. I'd like to call upon Dan to take us through the scripture and prayer.
Thanks, Tanya. Honourable Minister Vangelis Haritatus, Minister of Lands, Rural Development, and guest of honour represented herein by his Perm Sec, Prof. Dr. P.B. Matondi, esteemed ambassadors, members of the diplomatic community, the President of CFU, CFU trustees, councillors, members of the executive, distinguished guests, speakers, panelists, fellow farmer representatives, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and a very warm welcome to this 83rd Annual Congress of the Commercial Farmers Union. It is my privilege as the Vice President of CFU to welcome you all to Art Farm on this important occasion. We are grateful for each member, partner, representative of government, member of the diplomatic community, speaker, guests who have joined us today, both in person and online. Our theme is both timely and significant: growth through unity, building an inclusive, sustainable agricultural future. We're especially honoured by the presence of our guest of honour, represented by PermSec Prof. Matondi. Thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to be here. We know you had a lot of pressing matters to attend to. It reflects the effort put into this reflects the importance of the continued engagement that we've had between CFU and government on farming matters as we seek practical solutions to challenges confronting our sector and working together to unlock the full potential of our most valuable land resource. Before I go any further, I would like to share a scripture that speaks directly to the spirit in which we gather here today. Comes from Ecclesiastes 4:9-12. Two are better than one, because they have good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. Though one may be overpowered by another, two can withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. I love the fact that this passage begins with, not with hardship, but with reward. Too often we focus on the hardships in front of us. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. Unity is not simply how we survive the difficult years, but it is how we produce more, earn more, and build more than we ever could alone. That is the promise that we gather under here today. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the land you've entrusted to us and for the calling you have placed on our lives. As farmers and custodians of the soil, we thank you for the men and women in this room who rise early, who take the risk, and who feed this nation. We come back before you mindful of the seasons ahead, with the uncertainty of rains, the weight of the costs we carry, and the decisions that lie before us. Fill us with hope rather than fear, and wisdom rather than worry. Bind us together as one cord of many strands, that we may lift up one another when we stumble, and stand firm when we are tested. Bless our guest of honor and all who lead our nation. Grant them the discernment and the heart for those who work the land. Bless the deliberations of this Congress, that we decide here would serve not only ourselves, but every farmer in Zimbabwe and the generations who will follow. We commit this day and the Union into your hands. In Jesus' name, amen. Ladies and gentlemen, we gather at a challenging time for agriculture in Zimbabwe. Our farmers are operating in an environment where viability is under sustained pressure. Across many enterprises, the cost of inputs, fuel, electricity, labor, finance, machinery and repairs have risen sharply. Producers continue to face difficult decisions in maintaining production. protecting investment, and remaining competitive in both the local and the export markets. These are not merely farming business issues. Agricultural viability affects food security, rural employment, value chains, foreign currency generation, industrial activity, and the well-being of communities throughout Zimbabwe. A farmer who cannot operate profitably cannot reinvest, and without reinvestment, the sector cannot modernize, expand, or sustain the livelihoods that depend on it. The CFU remains acutely aware of all these realities. We have continued to engage tirelessly on behalf of its members, advocating for conditions that enable farmers to produce, invest, and grow. We recognize that the challenges are complex and cannot be solved by one institution alone. They require meaningful engagement and alignment between farmers, government, finance institutions, suppliers, markets, service providers, and all stakeholders in the agricultural value chain. It cannot be attacked by just one entity. We acknowledge and appreciate the support and willingness to engage shown by our ministries and government departments. Constructive dialogue is essential, where farmers and government can engage openly, professionally, purposely, and there's always an opportunity to solve the problems before they become a crisis when we do so, and establish the confidence required for us to invest as farmers. We also look ahead to the coming rainy season with serious concern. The risk of an El Nino event is a sobering reminder that climate risk must remain central to farm planning and national agricultural policy. The prospect of reduced or erratic rainfall demands preparedness at every level. It calls for greater focus on water security, irrigation development, conservation agriculture, drought-tolerant production systems, improved livestock management, and disciplined financial planning. It also reinforces the importance of ensuring that farmers have timely access to our inputs: seed, fertilizer, crop protection products, irrigation equipment, finance, and markets, of course. Climate resilience is no longer an aspiration for the future. It is an immediate business imperative. We must develop agricultural systems that can withstand shocks while continuing to deliver food, employment, and growth. At the same time, we must recognize positive developments that have the potential to strengthen the foundation of our Zimbabwean agriculture. Prof. Mutede, the recent progress on land tenure, including the issuance of title deeds under the new title deed scheme, is an important and welcome development. Secure tender is fundamental to agricultural prosperity. It gives farmers greater confidence to invest in long-term improvements, develop irrigation, restore infrastructure, access finance, and improve productivity while planning for the next generation. Land is the foundation upon which agriculture is built. Where there is certainty, farmers can invest with greater confidence. Where investment is supported, productivity rises. And where productivity rises, the benefits flow beyond the farm gate to the farm staff, communities, processors, traders, and the national economy. We commend the leadership being demonstrated by His Excellency Dr. Edie Mnangagwa and our ministries in advancing this important work. We look forward to continued progress in creating a land tenure environment that supports productive agriculture, responsible investment, and sustained growth. Our theme today speaks of growth through unity. This must be more than a phrase. It must be our shared commitment. Unity does not require that we all be the same. Zimbabwean agriculture is diverse. Diverse in geography, enterprise, scale, experience, culture, and farming systems. That diversity is a strength. It brings knowledge, adaptability, innovation, and opportunity. But diversity must be brought together by a common purpose: to build a productive, inclusive, sustainable, and profitable agricultural sector for Zimbabwe. We need unity among farmers. We need unity across commodities, regions, generations. We need to create room for experienced farmers whose knowledge and resilience have sustained the sector through some very, very difficult times, while also making space for younger farmers and emerging agricultural entrepreneurs whose energy and innovation are vital to the future. We must also work in alignment with national leadership structures at every level. This includes government, ministries, local authorities, traditional leaders, financial institutions, research bodies, agricultural colleges, industry partners, and all farmer organizations. Agriculture is too important to Zimbabwe for fragmentation to weaken our collective ability to act. This Congress provides valuable opportunity to reflect on where we have come from, confront the realities of today, and shape a practical direction for the future. The discussions that follow will address important issues around land, agriculture, finance, markets, and farmer representation. I encourage every delegate to participate actively, respectfully, and constructively. Let us be frank about our challenges, but not discouraged by them. Let us identify problems, but more importantly, let us pursue workable solutions. Let us build the confidence, cooperation, and the clarity needed for our sector to thrive. Agriculture is not simply a commercial activity, it's a national strategic asset. It feeds our people, provides livelihoods, creates employment, supports industry, and contributes to the sustainability and prosperity of Zimbabwe. As we begin this Congress, let us therefore commit ourselves to unity of purpose. Let us choose cooperation over division, resilience over despair, and practical action over rhetoric. On behalf of the CFU Executive and Council, I thank you all for your presence and for your continued commitment to Zimbabwean agriculture and the CFU. It's my great honor and privilege to formally welcome you to the 83rd Annual Congress of the Commercial Farmers Union. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Very heartfelt and compelling opening remarks. Thank you. At this stage, I'd like to invite the President of the CFU, Liam Philp, to introduce us to our guest of honor.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who haven't seen already this morning from the closed session, thanks for taking the time to come through today. Many of you were expecting to see Minister Harare here this morning. Unfortunately, he was called away yesterday evening to attend a function with the President at Rainbow Towers. It's the SADC Industrialization Week. He has been in touch with me this morning, and he will give me a message when he completes his obligations that side. And if there's still members around, he will be coming through to have an engagement with farmers. He very much wanted to have this engagement today, which is why we had initially moved our Congress date out by a week to accommodate the minister's calendar. So in his absence, the minister appointed the PS Mutede to come and deliver his address on his behalf. I know that you had a number of obligations as well this morning, which you had to pull yourself away from. So we appreciate you, sir, for taking the time to come and address us and deliver the message from the Ministry of Lands. If I could invite you down to the platform. Thank you.
A very good morning to you all, and it's a pleasure to be with you this morning on this important Congress that happens at a time when we are going probably structural and fundamental change in government and in relation to the sector that is so dear to all of us. I know Honorable Minister would have been happier to be with you, to all of us, to share his words and to give you assurance around the intention that government is taking and has been taking in order to address key and fundamental issues that affect our society at large. Zimbabwe's agriculture and rural development in general is fundamental to who we are. It unifies us, but at times there are specific challenges that we go through each time that we are called upon to address each and every moment. I'll take the advantage before I read the speech just to say out who we are, because we are a new Ministry of Lands and Rural Development. Many of you, I know, you probably know the lands as before and the work that it has done over the years. And the sector was subsumed into agriculture for a variety of reasons, of which much of what was intended then has been achieved in terms of ensuring that the country achieves food security. If you go back to many decades ago or to many years ago, we've gotten through a trajectory of doing very well in terms of food production, productivity, and all, but also years of deficits caused by a variety of factors that include our engagement in relation to the land reform program and also issues that are beyond and sometimes the control of every farmer, but some farmers around climate change that has affected the region and the nation in various ways. And as indicated, we are also faced with prospects of another climate negative that comes with the El Niño effect, even though we are trying by all means to prepare for it. But as we are new, we are almost 3 months old in office. The Honorable Minister, the Deputy Minister, and myself. And we were given a structure with nothing. We are starting afresh. There is completely nothing. Nothing means a lot. It means that we are setting a new page where we want and we intend, as directed by our President, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, that this is the time to unify the nation into the future. And that future probably is an ongoing future where our past is seen as gain and lose. We are victims of our circumstances in many ways. We have scored victories across our nation in many other sectors, but collectively, our view, and very strong view, is that we collectively have all lost. And this new page is about not just accounting for that loss or continuous mourning around that loss, but to say, what is it that collectively as Zimbabweans we want to do to chart a new chapter and a new page where we unify towards better prospects for rural development that is far-reaching to all corners of the country, that is far-reaching to all of society, that is far-reaching to those who have not been part of this journey. We have implemented the land reform program. Now it's 26 years. 26 years where it has been a continuous battlegrounds that we see on a continuous basis each and every day. But do we need to be in this battleground? Or, as Zimbabweans, can we find each other to resolve what we have gone through and where we want to say what then is the future that reaches every household, every person in the country? So the president then directed and appointed the minister, indicating the intention to shift the pages towards a new order and a new way of doing business. Our intention are clear, that we require to address issues related to the land question, because the land reform program is over. And now we have to focus on what we can do in order to provide secure tenure rights and be able to account for every inch of land towards its total development. Our intention is also clear, that the rural development part has been an arena of struggle for us. The rates of poverty, if I can just give you basic indicators from the assessment by the UN and also ourselves together collectively, 70% of our population are still mired in poverty. 70%, despite all our efforts to secure national food security and ensure national development. And if in 3 years' time, by 2030, we are just able to not to address the 70%, but just to attrition 20% of that 70% to address the nation's development requirements and address the material poverty that society experiences, me and my minister would have achieved our intentions. If we can address issues faced by women, faced by youth, and all of society, then we'll be in the correct trajectory. We have been given a blank check to structure our intentions. And I'm pleased to announce to you that after weeks of intense engagements, sleepless nights, we have now been given our complete structure. The complete structure also speaks to the intention of our vision. The establishment from national to district level is quite strong, showing that intention. And of course, first for its government to put thousands of men and women to come in and address this particular issue in one stroke. And that's the work that we are now trying to undertake. We are happy to be here to engage with yourselves, but we now have an opportunity to also go to society and engage society fully in terms of not only visioning the future, but working that future that we so desire. And this is where we appreciate the work that you have been doing, your patience, your kindness in addressing these fundamental issues. So this annual Congress is very, very important to us in government. So I now go to the speech. It is a profound honor to join you at this annual Congress. Allow me to begin by acknowledging the leadership of the CFU. Your organization has consistently demonstrated maturity, professionalism, and a constructive spirit. You have chosen dialogue over division, solutions over complaints, and partnership over isolation. This approach strengthens our national agricultural agenda and ensures that Zimbabwe continues to move forward with unity, clarity, and purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, agriculture is not merely an economic sector, it is the backbone of our national identity. It feeds our people, powers our industries, earns our foreign currency, anchors our rural development, and fosters economic growth. When agriculture succeeds, Zimbabwe succeeds. When farmers thrive, the nation thrives. Today, I wish to speak frankly about where we have come from, where we stand, and most importantly, where we are going together. The first message I wish to emphasize is that Zimbabwe has entered a new chapter. The land reform program is complete. The national discourse has shifted decisively from redistribution to productivity, tenure security, investment, and rural transformation. Our responsibility now is to ensure that the land entrusted to every landholder in this country is productive, secure, sustainable, and capable of generating wealth for current and future generations. Government is therefore accelerating the modernization of land administration systems by digitalizing all land records, strengthening the cadastral mapping, improving surveys, and building an integrated land information system that links every parcel of land to its rightful holder and its productive utilization. Good governance begins with good information. A modern land administration system is not simply about maps. It is about creating a national database that connects land ownership, land use, infrastructure, environmental stewardship, and investment. This will improve planning, strengthen accountability, reduce disputes, and provide certainty required for banks and investors to make long-term commitments to agriculture. Secure tenure is the foundation of agricultural transformation. Government has therefore embarked on the historic process of issuing title deeds to qualifying farmers currently holding offer letters and other tenure instruments. This initiative is designed to unlock investment, encourage farm infrastructure development, such as irrigation, to de-link agriculture from weather, and support mechanization, improve soil management, and stimulate value addition, which is the reason why concurrently we are having the Industrialization Week where our Honorable Minister is engaging at that level. Title creates confidence. Confidence creates opportunity. Opportunity creates wealth. And wealth creates an upper middle income society, and for us by 2030 and all the time. As part of this process, beneficiaries will have the option to receive title in exchange for voluntarily foregoing compensation claims associated with that land. This balanced approach strengthens tenure security while progressively resolving historical obligations in a manner that protects both the beneficiaries and the state. His Excellency, the President, Dr. Edie Mnangagwa, has consistently challenged us to ensure that rural communities evolve from subsistence zones into centers of production, industrialization, and prosperity. Land is the beginning. Our objective must be to build thriving rural economies supported by irrigation, agro-processing, smart homes, renewable energy, logistical and supply chains, digital connectivity, finance, and competitive markets. This is why government is championing agro-industrial special economic zones, and these zones demonstrate what is possible where secure land, reliable water, renewable energy, logistical platforms, and modern value chains are integrated into a single coherent ecosystem. They reduce investment risks, accelerate rural industrialization, and create vertically integrated farm-to-market systems capable of supplying regional and international markets. Our vision is clear. Every province must host agro-industrial special economic zones that anchor rural economies, stimulate exports, create employment, and strengthen the utilization of land. These zones must integrate smallholder farmers, through structured outgrower schemes, technology transfer, quality and standards, and guaranteed markets. Rural communities must also benefit from commercial agriculture, not as spectators, but as participants. Government alone cannot achieve this vision. We require partnerships, innovation, with productive farmers who embrace technology, improve efficiency, protect natural resources, and invest in their land. This is where the Commercial Farmers Union plays an indispensable role. You provide leadership, you transfer knowledge, you encourage collective excellence, you build confidence across the agricultural sector. Your engagement with government on compensation and the global compensation deed has been constructive and grounded in national and honest interest. We remain committed to resolving the outstanding historical matters in a manner that is sustainable, innovative, and aligned with Zimbabwe's broader debt resolution and economic reform agenda. These discussions must continue with goodwill, mutual respect, and shared purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, the success of agriculture cannot be measured by tons of harvested produce. It must also be measured by the investor confidence and by your confidence, by the number of young people choosing agriculture as a career, by the growth of rural businesses, by the resilience of our farming systems, and by our ability to compete regionally and globally. Above all, it must be measured by the prosperity of all Zimbabweans. Government remains fully committed to creating an enabling environment where productive farmers can succeed. We will continue strengthening land administration, improving tenure security, and modernizing information systems, and removing all barriers that affect investment. We will continue working with all stakeholders, farmers, industry, financial institutions, and development partners to unlock the full potential of agriculture. As we gather under the theme, Growth Through Unity, Building an Inclusive, Sustainable Agricultural Future, let us remember that unity is not a slogan. It is a strategy. It is the foundation upon which we build confidence, attract investment, strengthen value chains, and transform rural communities. On this note, allow me to express my gratitude for the Commercial Farmers Union for your continued contribution to the development of the agricultural sector. Your experience, resilience, and commitment to remain invaluable national asset is well appreciated. Together, let us build a modern, productive, and inclusive agricultural sector that supports industrial growth, strengthens food security, and creates employment, and to deliver lasting prosperity for all Zimbabweans. Working together with government, farmers, industry, and development partners, I have no doubt that we will realize this excellence vision of 2030 and leave a stronger agricultural legacy for future generations. With these few words, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to declare the Commercial Farmers Union's 83rd Annual Congress officially open. I wish you all a wonderful day, and may you have fruitful deliberations. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, PS. Your words come at a time where membership has concerns about the future of the land question and tenure, and your clarification that the land reform, the redistribution part of it, has come to an end, I hope clarifies or crystallizes the position in which we sit today. I believe that membership at this point is asking themselves, given the changes that are being described, given the position that we're in today, what does that mean for the CFU in terms of relevance, in terms of going forward? given the distinct nature between the land question and agriculture. I'm sure a lot of people have been asking, even in interactions outside, to say, are we properly positioned as a union to maximize the opportunities within the landscape? We have a portion that must work with government with respect to land tenure, with respect to compensation. We have a government that's committed to the success of agriculture in this country within the context of the land reform. This then begs the question for all of us, are we relevant as currently constituted as in the CFU? Do we have the right structures? Do we have the right personnel? Do we have the right vision? Do we have the right alignment as an organization? We all have different ideas of the right way to do it, and I hope that by the time we finish today's Congress, we'll have clarity and discourse as to the best way to approach this question. As the leadership of the CFU, we'll have a presentation to be done by Daniel, which will try and propose to the Congress the formation of a new union that will focus on agriculture, but still allow the CFU to chase and follow and push for finality around compensation and the land tenure. We feel the best structure, the best way to move forward is to have two distinct unions, powerful, focused, but intertwined in their desire for the success of the agricultural sector and finality of the land and compensation areas. This is not a replacement of the CFU. If anything, this is a conversion into a more specific and capable structure that will give progress and growth and sustainability to agriculture and to our nation. So to provide clarity of the new direction that we're taking, allow me to invite our Vice President, Dan Berger, for his presentation. Thank you.
Right, good morning everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I hope it's clear enough. The screen unfortunately was going to be a bit too small. So basically what I want to do today is just introduce a practical vision that's emerged through extensive consultation within CFU and the broader farming community. And that's to establish a new structure starting out as United Farmers UF, but ultimately becoming the United Farmers Union, UFU. Sounds a little bit funny, but that's the acronym that we got. So the question is why United Farmers UF or UFU? So our sector is operating obviously in a very challenging environment. We need, as Tanya has touched on, a very clear and distinct representative body, one that can focus on current matters relating to active farming members. And that's ultimately just to ensure the viability of our sector when we're facing increase in costs through finance tenure, finance our markets. The land tenure is something pertinent. And really, it's just to bring all farmers together under a focused objective. I think the very important aspect to speak to here is that really the key message is it's certainly not division. Although there's a separation, it's clearly a separation of roles and responsibilities. By no means is it a division. As Tanya has touched on, the CFU has very important responsibilities to carry out on historical matters, compensation, and other legacy issues. And it's vital that those responsibilities are attended to with absolute focus and clear direction. We found that there's been a bit of an overlap in purpose between representing compensation matters and historical issues, as well as trying to advocate for various policy matters moving forward as active farmers. So the concept here is that UFU will focus on the day-to-day needs of active farmers and the future of our productive sector. The key here as well is that we've got to be sensitive and clear to the work that CFU has to do on compensation and historical matters. It's certainly not being set aside, as we've already said. It's merely a refocusing of responsibilities. The value of UFU, that it will allow our active farmers now to receive dedicated attention from the union, not a division of energy, but a multiplication of energy, without compromising CFU's mandate and vice versa. What we can see on the slide is just a brief summary, which we already know, just some of the matters facing us farmers every day. These issues are all interlinked. No one matter is an island there. They all affect each other. And the objective is for UFU to relentlessly and practically deal with all these issues and obviously any other issues that come forward. So the opportunity before us is that even though we face these difficult situations, there's a great reason for our confidence, and that's we still have a lot of skilled farmers actively farming, a lot of productive land. There's been a lot of water bodies developed that need to be taken advantage of and utilized. Communities still needing upliftment. And really the establishment of value chains, I think, which have largely collapsed through the last 2 decades or so. The recent attention under land tenure with the new title deed process is a very positive development, I believe. And secure tenure, as we know from before, is really critical to the advancement of our sector. And now it's very difficult to try and advocate and pursue this whilst at the same time dealing with historical issues. But again, to reiterate that we believe firmly that there is a common ground and a united purpose that we can all achieve, so that both CFU can continue with its mandate, UFU can continue with its mandate, and we can have just common ground to benefit everyone involved. So the vision of UFU, or the UF initially, it's a simple vision. We're not just establishing another organization. There's other farmers' unions there, some represented here. It's clearly not a money-making exercise. It's an act of service. The aim is that we want to drive a profitable, a sector that's profitable for farmers, So a united, profitable, inclusive and sustainable agricultural sector that contributes to food security, employment, exports and national prosperity. UFU will stand for, and the driving factors will stand for, it will be farmer-led, is the backbone really of the soon-to-be union. And its principles are that it should be inclusive, practical, production-focused. An important aspect is non-partisan. We've always got to think and talk and engage objectively for the best interests of our membership that we represent, and it has to be accountable, sound and transparent governance. The idea for UFU and who it will represent, essentially we want to make it an all-inclusive union. It's critical that as a sector we are inclusive so that we can consolidate our interests and our approach and therefore have a stronger voice, which we are fortunate enough that our ministries already hear us on and receive. The doors are open, which we're very grateful for. It will as well consist of commodity associations and producer organizations, which we envisage being the real backbone of the union. It's the sort of regional representation is something that may follow down the line, but what we have found is that commodity associations and producer organizations have a louder voice. It's much easier to get unity and input through those associations with similar purposes as opposed to trying to consolidate across provinces. You just end up with a duplication of input. Cooperatives, farming groups, women and young farmers is an emerging space. Fortunately, we have already had a lot of women and youth coming into agriculture. The Federation of Young Farmers Zimbabwe has done a fantastic job in developing youth in agriculture. They've got a huge member base that we've seen in the past. CFU would get a lot of support from the international community to small-scale projects, developmental projects, which as commercial operators we can't really take up. So, but as the Federation and some of these other entities, without the broader higher-level structures in place, they've not been able to access these. So the idea is for success of those programs, you need a mentor and you need the emerging farmers to benefit from the scheme. So we want to try and bring that together. And then we've, of course, got our agricultural professionals and associate agribusiness members. The idea of what UFU will do essentially is very much the same as what CFU has been trying to do on the active farming side. We will advocate for viable farming conditions, engage on tenure, finance inputs and markets, support productivity, innovation and climate resilience. The innovation, I think, is a key area. It's an area that we have been lacking somewhat and we need to focus on. The strengthening of commodity and value chain representation, consolidation of produce to negotiate for better pricings, etc., and to ultimately just build credible partnerships for agricultural growth. A guiding principle here is that clear boundaries build trust. When we operate in muddy waters or grey areas, that's where there's a lot of room for misconception and confusion. So I felt it was important just to outline here what United Farmers or UFU will not do. We will not compromise farmers' individual choices. Every farmer is free to make their choice. There's no imposition here. It's purely a representation of matters that are pertinent to farmers in general. We will not diminish the importance of historical claims. In fact, I think it is a key pillar to resolving our land tenure going forward and to helping bring unity. We will not be a political organization. We are simply focused on agriculture. We stand by the government of the day. We support their initiatives, and we do what we can to best drive those initiatives forward. Where there's disagreement, there will be frank conversations. Ultimately, it's just for the progression of the sector. We will not replace CFU's historical compensation mandate. That remains solely with CFU, and there's no pressure or expectation. We will not force any members to transfer. We're simply creating an option for active farming members to fall under for a more focused approach. So it's purely voluntary, and members will be free to choose. So the idea is that UFU will be independent from the steps to take. There's a lot of active farming members in CFU. What we are proposing is a written up transition and cooperation agreement between CFU and UFU, whereby where there are active farming members who are within CFU who would wish to move to UFU, there would be an agreement in place on a case-by-case study for any subscriptions paid and not yet fully used. As I said earlier, it's purely voluntary. It's an invitation to all farmers, all people in the agricultural sector to join. It's not closed to any specific grouping. And we'll have a clear separation of governance, finances, data, and operations. And ultimately, UFU will have its independence when it forms the United Farmers Union. The proposed structure is we wish to sort of nominate a founding board of approximately 8 members, to which, if it's the outgoing CFU pres and vice president, if they are to remain focused on farming matters, they will act as advisory to the founding board so that we have a sense of continuity. That board, the executive director will have his secretariat and office staff to run daily operations and will report to that board. And the strength of that board is going to be fed by the commodity and farmer representation and associations. So that will be covering all aspects of the agri sector. Where there are existing representative bodies in place, we will try and either negotiate a joint representation or just work together on cross-cutting matters. UFU will be built around real farming interests, ultimately building a regional and district member networks, our commodity associations, producer bodies, our technical working groups for specific matters pertaining to driving intergovernmental agreements between, or like SADC region trade agreements, support systems between provinces, districts, communities, and farmers, and a strong national coordination. So our pathway towards the formal recognition is moving forward from here, is establishing the United Farmers independently, building membership and national representation. And this is all to do with the SIs and everything that are in place for establishing a new union. We can't just go out and call ourselves the United Farmers Union. There has to be an SI issued by the ministry that formally recognizes us, and there's a process leading up to that, which is what this is outlining. Developing the constitution, policies, and operating systems, which drafts have already been worked on and would go through the newly appointed board. Following that, there would need to be an inaugural national congress to formally inaugurate the board and constitute the body. And from there, we can apply for the formal recognition as UFU being the United Farmers Union. This ultimately would like to see this take a 3-month timeline. Whether that's going to be achievable or not, we will find out, but I think a lot of the background work has already been done leading up to this. It was something discussed in last year's Congress, and there's been a lot of work put into it since then. the new body will, it's a bit of repetition, forgive me, but it's just really to build trust and credibility. As I said, it's an entity that will represent its members and be accountable, essentially much the same as what CFU was trying to do on an active farming base. Members within the United Farmers and United Farmers Union will have a focused voice on production and profitability. There's a focus on driving all those stronger engagement on land, finance, markets, better coordination across commodities, access to market insights, business intelligence and information services, access to farmer networks, and founding members will be given the opportunity to have a role in shaping the representation for the sector and belonging to a united agricultural movement, which is really what we need as an entity. So it's at this point that I would like to just welcome everyone to join in on the conversation. It's still open to a lot of feedback and implementation. It's not something that we intended to impose in any way, but it's going to require a lot of engagement to really have a strong, focused approach on moving forward. So at this point, it's a bit of a mouthful, a little bit broad. There may be some questions. If there is any questions, please feel free to ask them. Yes. Ambassador, if we can, here we go.
Is it on? Yes. I'll follow the rules of the debate and identify myself first. My name is Harare. I'm the acting ambassador for the Dutch embassy. Which acting ambassador is a fancy way to say I'm the deputy ambassador and the ambassador is out of the country. But Honourable PS, great to see you as well, and glad that you're here. I think being with and around farmers always makes me question the own work ethic we have at the embassy, because you guys are really the hard workers. I have one piece of information and then one question that I would like to ask. I guess to start off with the piece of information to let the audience know is that the Netherlands has recently taken over the co-chair role in the land tenure track. So that's the third pillar of the within the structured debt and arrears dialogue. So this Congress is very informative also for us as co-chairs, also in terms of what our aims can be in terms of an effective agenda with the respective other co-chairs, including the OPC. Interesting to see this vision forward. I actually was visiting 2 Dutch farmers yesterday in the Mutede area, and what we see there is a lot of the farmers are busy with the day-to-day, and busy with sort of the UFU kind of future-oriented, how do I farm today, how do I make it profitable and work, and at the same time busy with the historical legacy issues, so to say. So in that sense, they have one foot in CFU, if I can say it that way, and one foot in UFU. So I was just curious how these will remain linked to each other, because the one is, they're intrinsically linked in the sense that the future is also dependent on the past, and the past is also determining the future. So also in our role as co-chair, how do we then engage with the new structure as such? Because a lot of investors are also, we mentioned the land reform is behind us, which I think is a reassuring message also for the diplomatic community. But we, at the same time, many investors see unresolved land issues as a source of unreliability and hesitancy in terms of investing, because they're still seeing that restitution of land is still not complete. A lot of Dutch farmers, but also other farmers, are still waiting for official title. So a lot of the UFU mandate is still contingent on the CFU sort of mandate, if I can put it very, very, harshly like that. So how do you guys sort of envision that and the complementarity of these two? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thank you very much, Deputy Ambassador. I appreciate that. So that's been a lot of the challenge that we've been trying to work out. Part of the issue has been that when we've been going into offices, previously the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development, and now more simply it will be the Ministry of Lands and Rural Development and the Ministry of Agriculture, as well as Ministry of Finance. We, particularly Liam, when it comes to compensation-related matters, as the President of CFU, he's going into these offices with two hats on. And it's very difficult for our policymakers to understand and trust that whatever is discussed on one side is not going to be manipulated on the other. And so we tried with a stronger, more formal separation between, not separation, but separation of responsibilities with ARIC and CFU. However, with CFU being a signatory to the Global Compensation Deed and ARIC being a body within CFU, again, there's cross-cutting measures that the President and, in his absence, Vice President would have to see to. So it was very difficult to cut or draw a clear line, rather, between the two. So moving forward, 100% there's going to be a lot of cross-cutting matters. The future is dependent on resolving the past to a large extent. The idea being in that with the advisory input from CFU President, Vice Presidents moving across, for instance, if I move across myself to be a formal representative of UFU, or the same was to happen with Liam, there will still be a cross-cutting engagement with the CFU. It just means that when we are going into meetings, there will be the CFU can go in and focus their resources, because at the moment we're splitting resources quite a lot. You've got members paying for ARIC subs and everything. We've tried to separate those finances and manage it differently, but there's still a perception issue because it ultimately all goes into one organization. So where there's cross-cutting measures, there can be MOUs drawn up between the two, the same that we would do if we are dealing with cross-cutting issues between ZFU, ZCFU, UFU, CFU. We can have a particular mandate or MOU drawn up to achieve those initiatives. So moving forward, I think to answer your question more specifically, where there's matters of development and continuity of active farming, UFU would come in. Where it's to deal with historical matters and compensation issues that might affect some of your constituents as well, CFU will come in with a focused effort. Where there's cross-cutting measures or dual dialogue needed between parties to find a solution to a hanging issue, then we would both come in. But at least we can approach it and attack it with focused effort for our member base. And it's clear to our member base that the mandate they've given us is being protected and upheld. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you for the presentations. Graham Ross from Mashonaland. Just two things. First of all, is there, after compensation, is there life for CFU? Is there a bigger vision? Will it become a type of a land bank title deed holding issue, or will it be wound down and be a thing of the past? And then just if you could clearly just articulate, I know you've explained it to us, but what is the difference between ARIC and CFU currently and having now CFU and UFU? Is it just not a renaming of the two entities, or will they be completely diverse?
Thanks, Graham. I think I'll give a bit of a response, but Liam, where you feel the need to jump in, please do. So in terms of the continuity of CFU, I think that's part of the objective, is there will be a focus now of CFU. They will focus on their mandate and they will focus on their future and what they need to do. Whether they're becoming a land bank of sorts, managing TBs, I don't really know. But that will be the focus of CFU to carry out their mandate, and if they're going to update it or renew it, they can discuss that. In terms of the representation, So in terms of like ARIC and CFU at face value, that was our original idea, is that there's no difference to CFU and UFU. We thought we could clearly separate the two and they would have their mandates, pursue their mandates. Unfortunately, ARIC, if I can use, if it's the right term, it's a grouping out of or within CFU, forming a body that represents its interests, similar to how you would have your grain and oil seeds and livestock. The problem is it still has some element of reporting required, the way it's constituted, and the CFU president sits on ARIC, and CFU is the signatory to the GCD, not ARIC. ARIC is the body set up to manage and drive and run that. It's the engine room for that. Liam, I don't know if I've answered that question.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I think that what this is going to bring is it's going to bring clarity and focus, and it's going to bring a very clear structure for everybody to understand. ARIC will effectively be assuming control of the CFU, and over the next 3 months they will be developing their committees and structures and enhancing what their representation will be. But it's going to be absolutely vital for government and the representatives of the claimants to have a very clear, defined body to engage with a clear and well-outlined path. We believe that with the energy in government at the moment to find a solution, the focus is going to deliver results. With your question on what happens with CFU after compensation has been resolved, I think it's going to be a little way off. I believe there's a number of very exciting and ingenuitive features and recommendations which have been tabled for finding a solution, a resolution to compensation. And as you highlighted, one of them is the land bank. But we will see. It will take its natural course, and we've got to see what structures work best for what the members require with regard to representation. I think it's very important to highlight that the two organizations will have very clear and distinct leadership, and that is going to be something which is absolutely critical. Whilst there's going to be a sense of working together in pursuit of the national agenda, which has been highlighted numerous times today, that we have to resolve the past to move forward. We also need the future to be successful to help resolve the past. So there is a symbiotic relationship there, and good, strong leaders are hopefully going to take this forward into the next phase. We have to do something differently. We've had 26 years since land reform, and we believe the enthusiasm and engagement which is being offered and demonstrated by government is going to be most well suited to the two separate organizations. I hope that answers your question.
Andrew Pascoe from Mash East. I just wanted to ask a few things here. Well, put it this way. I've seen your presentation, Dan, and to me it looks like you're basically just reinventing the CFU. We had everything that you've put in for this UFU, or whatever its acronym is already there. And you've got to go through the whole process of statutory instruments and all sorts of other things to get it registered. On top of that, certainly since 2017, the CFU has a reputation of working with government. It's well recognized. There's been excellent cooperation across all sectors of government, international community, everyone involved in agriculture. And now we're going to be coming up with an unknown entity which we've got to try and sell and gain credibility and get recognition. Also, you're talking about a united farmers union, and under the presidency of Pete Stale, the Federation of Farmers Union was formed. There's already a trust in place, of which CFU is a founder member.
Yes.
There's also the ZFAT, Zimbabwe Farmers Alliance Trust, which was an alliance and a trust set up between the CFU and the ZFU. So you already have these unifying trusts and entities that are in place that could easily be used. So just sort of to what I've seen and what I've heard, it doesn't make sense to come up with a whole new farmers union. CFU's history is one of representing farmers, operating farmers, agriculture. And I know I hear Liam's comment that the CFU signed the GCD. I acknowledge that. Is there not an easier way to, through some legal process, to have ARIC become the recognized representative of those farmers who are wanting to deal with the compensation issue in some other way to what government has already chosen to do, which would be a whole lot simpler and a whole lot easier than the current, this what you're proposing here. I hear what the Honourable Deputy Ambassador said about his Dutch farmers who are managing the day-to-day farming, but they're also concerned about tenure. Tenure is an issue that doesn't only concern, it's not only CFU members or even UFU members, it's a cross-cutting issue that concerns every single farmer on the land. And it's one that government is already addressing and dealing with. And I think it's one that should stay within the representation of active farmers, not the compensation side. Compensation must deal with those farmers who are no longer on their farms and are looking for compensation. Those that are operating are the ones who need the secure tenure. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed. And I think one thing I'd like to highlight here is the fact that the tenure issues, I think CFU and government are speaking with the same voice. We've got there's support there and there's cooperation. I would like to submit, and one thing that hasn't been made clear is exactly what the new CFU representing the compensation claims are aiming to achieve. It's all very well saying we're going to go for compensation, but having been in the compensation process since we started anything meaningful, I think it's 8 years now. I know the road that you guys are trying to go, and I think, to be real honest, you're wasting your time. There's a process in place that over probably 1,100 people have already signed up. They're getting their US dollars cash, they're getting paid. There's mechanisms that have been put in place to actively use the money that has been laid aside. The portal's there. Anyone anywhere in the world can sign up and get their compensation claim verified and start receiving their payments into their bank accounts wherever they are, America, Australia, New Zealand, wherever they are. It's going to be a very hard sell to try and convince somebody that we need to have a different plan. If there is money available, the agreement that the farmers who are getting their compensation have signed guarantees that should finances become available, government is obligated to buy those treasury bonds that have been issued back at face value immediately funding becomes available. If you are managing to raise finances, rather let's work with something that works and get everyone who's signed up, paid up, and get their money, and then we can put the compensation issue behind us. I know our Honourable Minister has stated he wants the historical issues to be dealt with and finalized and finished and put behind us so we can move forward. And we already have the mechanisms in place. We just need to work together to make sure that the money goes to where it needs to go so the farmers can get paid as quickly as they can.
Thanks. And
I think that we all know the figure in the GCD. I don't know whether the new CFU is hoping to get that changed and I think it'll be a very difficult sell for anybody to buy it. So, I would appeal to you. From a historical point of view, I think Graham Ross raised the point that after CFU deals with compensation, really, where's it going? CFU has always been a farming body representing farmers. Rather, let's keep CFU representing farmers. If you feel you need to go a separate route for compensation, rather use ARIC and keep CFU alive, rather than... The other thing that I would like to just highlight, depending on your strategy and what you're hoping to achieve, I think we're going to end up with CFU in conflict with government over compensation again, whereas we have a really good track record of cooperation right now, and I think CFU needs to avoid the conflict, stay in good books, stay in cooperation, working with government, form another organization.
Dan, could I answer those questions before we take new questions? So, Andy, firstly, your question regarding why we need a new organization. Dan and I, as the leadership, with a young council, have tried incredibly hard to broaden our membership base. And there's a stigma attached to CFU. And as such, a lot of the Shona and Indabele farmers do not want to become members of the CFU. I think you know this quite well yourself. For a farmers' organization to be strong, it needs to be truly representative. We need a broad base of membership, and we need a new structure. I think that the best way is not always the easiest way. So we're up for the challenge. I say we, Dan and I are going to be supporting the team. But as an industry, people are up for the challenge. We've got no choice. We have to find solutions, and we have to take agriculture forward. You quite rightly pointed out that CFU is recognized as an 83-year-old organization, and it is signatory to the GCD. We did look into the ability to transfer legally those responsibilities, etc., and upon legal advice, it wasn't possible. So that was one of the main reasons for the young and more energetic agriculture sector to establish their own organization and leave the good structures of the CFU, who have a well-established reputation with government and the international community, to move forward. I have all the confidence in the new team who will be running CFU to build on what was there before. I have a far more optimistic outlook than you do, and I do believe that great things are going to come from this focused approach. You raise a good point with the federation. As you're aware, one of the biggest unions in the country, by membership, the ZFU, is not signed up to the federation. And whilst we've been working closely with the federation over the last 2 years to reinvigorate it, without ZFU in the room, it's not a representative federation. And it is something that we will certainly be working towards. A federation is a grouping of unions who come together with one single voice. But we need strong unions to be representative at federation level. Your comment regarding the claimants, we as CFU and ARIC have taken the approach, as you know, as I often say, that the route to compensation is very personal. We don't judge anybody, but what's really important is to make sure that there's other opportunities there. The current Profca deal, which is outside of the GCD, is not a great deal. The leadership of Profca say that themselves, and even the authorities say that. We recognize it's not a good deal, but it's the deal which is currently being fulfilled. And there are people who have ambitions to a different payment term. There's some people who can't wait 10 years, and they're looking forward to an organization to engage in dialogue with government to find alternative routes as you highlighted, it's a strength for your organization as well. If a solution is found through a new administrative process and a land bank, your organization will benefit from it. So I think rather than trying to discourage the focus and the unity, we should look to see how we can build together and move forwards. There's just under 80% of claimants whose claims remain unresolved. It's a significant amount of people, and every week we lose somebody else. There has to be a body to represent those people. As you know, you did a fantastic job in the build-up to the GCD and your term in leadership at the CFU. And I think we've got to give space to others to create new opportunities. Let's not close the door for others. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. I think if we'll just take two more for the sake of time. So if we can just take a comment back.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name's Ian Gibson. I live in rural Harare. The CFU was founded, I believe, in 1979, just before independence. Before that, it was called the Rhodesia National Farmers Union. But the leaders, the president of the union then changed it to fit in with the politics and the situations of the day. I spent 8 years in the CFU in the 90s, and it was always CFU policy that the members of the day ran the union and looked at what they wanted in the future. And that is why those of us, there's a few around here, look at the union and what they want and what they don't want. And I'll be quite honest, I'm all for this. You blokes must go for it. Eric can take over the union, and we'll look after our own affairs. And you know what? There's two of us in this room. I can see one sitting down there. His hair's a bit worse than mine. And there was a third member, a chap from Mutede called Richard Harvey. And we were in the union in 2007 and started all this compensation thing off. And as far as I'm concerned, we should have actually pulled out of the union 10 years ago. And I'm all for you blokes, because you are the youth of today. You are driving agriculture. You must do what you believe is right. And I believe we can in ARIC, and we've got the membership, we've got the people capable of negotiating and carrying forward our compensation issues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, if there's any more comments, I'll take a last comment. Jean?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sure you all know who I am, Jean Simon. Can you hear me at the front?
Yes.
Okay. With land reform being completed, restitution raises its head. About 25% of title deed holders would like to go back to their farms to farm productively. Which organization would represent this group of title deed holders? Will the title deed holders be able to forfeit compensation to enable access to their land? And what is government's view of restitution of land in lieu of forfeiting compensation to reduce the debt that they have at the moment?
Thank you, Jean. I think I will, unless there is a preference to speak to that, I think those are slightly more technical matters. In terms of representation, it will depend on the objective that's being pursued. If it's dealing with historical land matters, there will be representation through CFU. And I think something that maybe needs some clarity that was spoken to earlier, but I didn't really respond to well, is that in the event that there needs to be dual membership, there's been agreements between ZTA and CFU and similar that, we can't expect someone to pay, let's call it $500 a year on one union and then pay $500 a year just so they can have their interest. So where we see that there's a shared interest, there can as always be an agreement drawn up between CFU or at a Congress, a subscription line put in for dual members who still have a foot in either side. And when it comes to actively farming, the UFU would obviously well represent them. In terms of restitution and the like, I think those are things that will be taken up by the representative bodies on those matters. I do believe from my own experience that government has spoken plainly and clearly to those, but I would not like to get into any debates over that today unless there's any preference for a response. Prof, I don't know.
Yeah. These are very difficult questions and dicey times, but we believe that with your goodwill, you will be able to have a united front across all matters that affect your life, your work as excellent producers, but also in an inclusive manner to ensure that you also shepherd and help steward everyone united into the future. That is what I assure you that we are in deep crisis with land. The asset is not fully used. Even though we are saying that the land reform program is complete. And we know that some of your members are still on the ground. There are others who have expressed very strong willingness to be back on the ground based on how we evolve the title deed issuance program. And that's where our focus has been in the last couple of months, to say how do we strengthen the title deed and the procedures and steps that are necessary for members to be able to get ours. But that's the difficult part, where it has not been that easy. The disputes are far deeper than we assumed. I think the CFU probably trained everyone that the courts are a terrain of solving land issues, and anything from very minor to very complicated. Now our people on the ground, everyone is in the courts. Our ministry, in the previous ministry, was always in the courts. And when we assumed leadership, almost literally every day we are in the courts, trying to resolve boundary disputes, disputes around pegs, disputes about infrastructure, disputes about a ban, a this and a that, disputes about estates to be inherited. All these are just with us. But we haven't even started doing the actual work. So we said, how do we find a common ground where restitution issues are completely addressed, which government has been doing, but at the same time, how do we start migrating into the new terrain of enhancing production and also rural development? And how can members, your members, be willing participants of that process to say, oh well, some of us, we have got offer letters. I know some of you have got offer letters. Some hold 99-year leases that you have paid for and are coming to our office to say, in lieu of the title deeds, there are opportunities for offsetting. And some who hold your title deeds are coming back to say, how do we offset? Negotiations continue to be made with your leadership around that. And government is very open on that. We expect in the next couple of months that that matter will be much more clear. We have looked at the legal framework and what it provides. We have designed potential possible MOUs that your members who are willing to go into the offset program can come in and negotiate with us and sign off. You are entitled to farming land. Our mandate is to ensure that your entitlement is not affected by the past, which now we've confirmed clearly on the ground. And what we've done, and what we are lacking probably, is how do we secure our land administration system? And it's all about information. It's all about reviewing our cadastral. And the chaos that we have on the farms is literally related to land information. If you go to the steps from step 1 to about step 7 of title deed issuance, many of the farmers are failing on step 3. When they are cleared with related to their disputes, because the title deed does not take any disputes into to allow you to proceed to the title deed. And there are so many applicants that we receive per day. Probably now we are numbering probably about 400 or 500 people are coming to our offices at this one-stop center. And we simply can't manage. Why is it that despite the huge surge in the numbers, the title deeds we've actually issued are far, far less than the potential that we could? But we identified that it's exactly at step 3. It's about disputes. And when you get there, your survey diagrams, your land identification is problematic in so many ways. So what we decided to do is now to look back to say, what is it that we can enhance the survey of the land, the mapping, and that allows participants to be able to proceed to the title deed. Let me just give you an example. We have asked parties that are in dispute to negotiate. Border Timbers was in international courts. And with settlers on their properties, they've come to an agreement that this is part of the land that they are ceding, this is what they are keeping, and in lieu of having been allowed to continue some level of production. But it was the disruptions in the production patterns that was affecting their overall books. And we then said, negotiate. And they've negotiated, and they've ceded some properties. And now we've moved to the stage where we are doing now the survey and the pegging of the actual parcels on the properties that were ceded by Border Timbers. But the sum effect of that, which will yield about 5,000 properties that will go into the title deed straight away. But now the issues surrounding farmers in Mashonaland and companies who are saying, if this model works and it has shown its potential, we also want to be part of it. But the incredible undercapacity now of our ministry and our one-stop centers to process that is where the problem is. How do we ensure that the one-stop centers are decentralized and effective and are represented in all the regions? We thought about mobile one-stop centers, but it has got limitations. We are thinking about how do we do a crash program in establishing the one-stop centers across the country. But all those matters are really aimed at ensuring that everyone can potentially be a beneficiary of this program, and it is not exclusive to anyone.
And back to Tanya. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks to everyone for participation. I know that this is a very sensitive matter. We are going to have a panel very soon, and anyone that feels they still have questions that they need covered, welcome to raise their questions then. At this point, I'd like to invite the president of the CFU, Liam Philp, to give his address.
Ladies and gentlemen, I can't see you at the back. I've got to choose. I've decided this year to read a speech rather than speak. I'm not as good at reading as I am at speaking, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit. But I had to choose whether to wear glasses and see the guys at the back or my paper, and it's probably going to be a bit quicker if I look at my paper. Allow me to ride on the protocol observed. and established. In the interest of time, we still have a panel discussion coming up. Good morning, all. It's my privilege to welcome you to the 83rd Annual Congress of the Commercial Farmers Union. May I begin by thanking each and every one of you for taking time to join us today. Your presence reflects the importance of agriculture to Zimbabwe and your continued commitment to working together in building productive, competitive, and a prosperous sector. They say farming is the only business where you buy everything at retail, sell everything at wholesale, depend entirely on the weather, and still somehow get blamed for the price of bread when it cracks the $1 price point. The reality is that if farmers had the same influence over prices, and some people think we do, I suspect many of us would have retired many years ago. As every farmer knows, optimism is part of the job description. Every season begins with hope. Every setback teaches resilience, and every harvest reminds us why we continue to do what we do. The spirit has defined our union over the past year. Looking back, the past 12 months have once again tested the resilience of Zimbabwean agriculture. High production costs, expensive finance, policy uncertainty, infrastructure constraints, and increasing global competition have continued to challenge the viability of our farming businesses. Despite these challenges, I believe that we can look back on the year with considerable pride, not because every battle has been won, but because we have continued to engage constructively, consistently, and professionally on behalf of all of our members. Our representation on the cost of doing business has remained relentless. While progress has at times been slower than we would all like, I acknowledge the willingness of government to engage on these issues. The bread and butter matters: interest rates, taxation, duties, levies, transaction costs, regulatory burdens. They remain the single greatest detriments of agriculture competitiveness. These are not merely farming issues. They determine the price of food. They determine the competitiveness of our industry. They determine employment. And ultimately, they determine the strength of our economy. Although the wheels of government policy often turn more slowly than we would wish, I believe that there's been genuine progress in opening dialogue on all of these issues. Many of the matters that were once considered too difficult to discuss are now openly debated around the table. That in itself is great progress. Our responsibility has been to continue holding the line, to continue presenting the facts, to continue advocating for market conditions that support local production while ensuring national food security. Representation is often measured not by dramatic announcements, but by countless meetings, detailed submissions, difficult conversations, and persistent engagement. That work has continued every single week. Access to finance. Perhaps one of the most exciting developments has been the progress made in the discussions around agricultural finance. The cost of capital remains one of the biggest barriers to agricultural growth. No business can sustain borrowing rates of 30% on a stable currency and 18% on the US dollar. For many years, we've argued that no country can expect its productive sector to compete internationally while borrowing at these prohibitively high interest rates. I'm encouraged that our engagement with the Reserve Bank and the banking sector has culminated in the recommendation and commitment to support the establishment of an agricultural bond to raise money from the market and provide affordable seasonal finance to our sector. We're endeavouring to establish an initial pilot program for the 26-27 summer season. This is a tight timeline, but we believe it could be achieved. Should that prove successful, it has potential to catalyse a significantly larger program for the 2027 winter crop and summer production seasons. If successful, this could fundamentally change the financing landscape of Zimbabwean agriculture. With regards to labour representation, throughout the year the union has continued representing farmers through the National Employment Council. Agriculture succeeds when both employers and employees succeed. We've therefore worked closely with other employer organizations, some who are here with us today, to negotiate fair and sustainable wages and conditions of service, balancing the legitimate needs of workers with the economic realities facing farming businesses. Constructive dialogue remains the only sustainable path forward. With regard to land tenure, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most significant developments has been the continued progress towards issuing title deeds to qualifying farmers still in operation under offer letters, permits, and 99-year leases. Secure tenure changes everything. It encourages investment, it unlocks finance, it creates confidence, and it rewards productivity. It creates a long-term mindset and approach to agriculture, something which is lacking in Zimbabwe. We welcome government's willingness to move in this direction and look forward to continued collaboration as this important program gathers momentum. With regard to weekly engagements, one initiative that's proved invaluable has been the weekly engagements between the Minister and leaders across the agriculture sector. The Minister of Agriculture prioritizes this 1 hour of candid discussion every Thursday between 7 and 8. These meetings have allowed pressing issues to be tabled quickly, value chain participants to remain informed, challenges to be addressed collaboratively, and importantly, continued constructive dialogue. This level of communication has strengthened relationships across the sector and created a culture of cooperation. We thank the Honourable Minister for prioritising these engagements week in and week out. With regard to strengthening the union, when this council assumed office, we inherited a union facing financial challenges. We had difficult decisions to make. We accepted a simple principle. We would cut our cloak according to our cloth. We reduced expenditure, we lived within our means, and we did so without utilising any ARAC revenue, which was successfully ring-fenced as per our commitment to our members. Today I'm pleased to report that the union is financially stable. Each entity now effectively rows its own boat, providing greater transparency and ensuring that member subscriptions are utilised for their intended purposes. That has been an important governance milestone that we set out to achieve. With regard to ARAC and compensation, turning to the compensation matters, ARAC has had an exceptionally busy year. We continued playing an active role within the Compensation Steering Committee. While there were undoubtedly challenging moments, we emerged stronger through unity and with overwhelming support from our membership. I would particularly like to acknowledge Ian McKersey, Chairman of both ARAC and the CSC, whose leadership throughout the year has been exceptional. Thank you, Ian. Likewise, Susie Haynes deserves enormous recognition for carrying the administrative responsibilities with remarkable efficiency, professionalism, and dedication, all pro bono. Thank you very much. Thanks, Susie. We've continued refining and promoting the Land Bank initiative, which we firmly believe represents one of the most holistic and sustainable solutions to compensation arising from property acquired under the Fast-Track Land Reform Program, whilst unlocking never-before-experienced securitized lines of credit into agriculture. Alongside this initiative, we have continued working closely with our partners to explore every credible avenue that may contribute towards settlement of the outstanding obligations. Within the third pillar of the structured dialogue, we've continued ensuring that the interests of the majority of claimants remain firmly on the table. It's been important to ensure that no single initiative is portrayed as the only possible solution. Just over 20% of claimants have elected to participate in the Profca initiative established outside of the GCD. Our responsibility has always been to represent all of our members and ensure that every viable solution remains available for consideration. As we work towards establishing a compensation initiative for the remaining 80% of claimants, we continue to reiterate our commitment to the process and call for meaningful and constructive dialogue with the authorities. Moving on to the new chapter. Perhaps the most significant development of the past year has been the mandate received from our members. Our AREC membership overwhelmingly instructed us to focus the Commercial Farmers Union on compensation matters and to work more closely with the government and the international community in developing and operationalizing a sustainable solution to compensation. At the same time, our active farmers chose a different path. They chose to establish a new, broad-based representative organization for Zimbabwean agriculture. I'm genuinely excited about the United Farmers. This organization has already attracted significant support from farmers, agribusiness policymakers, and industry leaders. It represents a fresh approach founded on collaborations and new beginnings, on commodity associations rather than bureaucracy, on innovation, partnerships, and practical member services, and on building stronger agricultural value chains, which is key to our recovery. Now it's up to all of us to get to the next step. No organization becomes successful because of its constitution or representation. It becomes successful because its members actively participate, contribute ideas, volunteer their time, and support one another. The United Farmers will only become as strong as the commitment of those who choose to participate in building it. I encourage every active Zimbabwean farmer to become part of the journey. Moving on to my acknowledgements. No president succeeds alone. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to our council for your unwavering support, wise counsel and dedication throughout what's often been a demanding period. Time is valuable, and you have given of yours for your industry and your communities. Thank you to all of those who sit on council. We appreciate you. To the staff of the Commercial Farmers Union, thank you for another year of professionalism and commitment. A special word of appreciation must go to Louise. Your loyalty, dedication, and tireless support to the union, its leadership, and its members have simply been extraordinary. Thank you. I also wish to warmly welcome our new director, Tinotenda, who many of you met for the first time today. He's quite literally hit the ground running. In a very short period of time, he has already made a significant contribution and has taken an enormous administrative burden off both Daniel and myself. He's put runs on the board, and the members appreciate it. Thank you very much. Tinotenda now assumes the responsibility of driving the establishment of the United Farmers as the transition unfolds over the coming 3 months. We're delighted to have you on board. To my Vice President, Daniel, thank you. Where is he? Your calm judgment, balanced approach, and steadfast support have been invaluable. Every president needs somebody they can trust to challenge ideas, offer perspective, and quietly solve problems. I'm talking about you, Daniel. You've been that person for me, and I'd like to thank you for your commitment and for your friendship. I'll pause while we welcome Prof. Chiri. No problem. I'd like everyone just to welcome Prof. Chiri, our PS at Ministry of Agriculture. He's come to attend our panel discussion. Thank you. Thanks for coming through. To the leadership of other farmers' unions, farmer organizations, and CZI, I'm proud of the friendship we have developed, which has resulted in collaboration of advocacy on cross-cutting issues for Zimbabwean farmers. To the Chairman of FCCA, Graham Murdoch, your support and collaboration particularly stands out. I believe we've made some headway for the industry, although it can be quite tiring at times. To our leadership in the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Lands, Minister Masuka and Mr. Haritatis, thank you for the open door, the listening ear. I'm confident that we'll build on this collaboration as we move forward into the new chapter. Prof. Jiri, you arrived at just the right time. To the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Lands, Prof. Jiri, a remarkable man who again extended me an open door for frank, candid, and constructive discussions. I appreciate you and all that you do for Zimbabwean agriculture. Thank you. To the newly appointed Permsec of Lands, Prof. Matondi, thank you for stepping in on short notice to represent our guest of honor, who was called away to attend the Industrialization Week with His Excellency the President. To all the members of the Diplomatic Corps, thank you for the numerous engagements as we work together to unlock lines of credit, investment, and support for our industry. My business partners, many of whom are family, thank you for being extraordinarily understanding and supportive of my time away from the business. You showed your commitment to the agriculture sector through this action. Thank you. To my very patient wife, Jamie, and my daughters Isabella and Gabriella, thank you for your unwavering love and support during this journey that I signed you up for without permission. I hope to be there for more soccer games and performances as you grow up. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be my final address as President of the Commercial Farmers Union. It's been one of the greatest honors of my life to serve in this remarkable organization. When I accepted this responsibility, I did so with one simple objective: to leave the union stronger than I found it. Whether history judges that kindly or not is not for me to decide. But I can honestly say that every decision we have taken has been guided by what we believed was in the best long-term interests of our members and Zimbabwean agriculture. As I step down as president, I do so with enormous optimism. I see a sector on the verge of transformation. I see farmers gaining secure title to reinvigorate large-scale agricultural investment. I see renewed momentum behind government's efforts to resolve compensation. I see innovative approaches to agricultural finance. I see stronger collaboration across our value chains. And I see a new generation of agriculture leadership emerging and collaborating. Although I'll no longer serve as president, please be assured that I remain fully committed to working alongside the incoming leadership to bring our outstanding matters to successful conclusion. These are the matters which we are currently dealing with at hand. Leadership may change, commitments do not. Finally, let me thank every member who has placed their trust in me over the past years. Thank you for your support, thank you for your friendship, thank you for your resilience. Zimbabwean agriculture has overcome extraordinary challenges before. I have every confidence that its best years still lie ahead. May God continue to bless our farmers. May God continue to bless Zimbabwe. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Character defines us. We are measured by what we do. I've known Liam for over 10 years. And the intention, the purity of an intention, I think supersedes the in-between. And Liam's heart has always been in the right place. He's a very passionate man. I was with him a few days ago, and he gets red-faced when he gets upset. But that's because of the intention. He is passionate, he is clear, and I would ask kindly if we could give him another round of applause for the work that he's done. Right, thank you so much. We move on to our panel discussion. This is opportunity for everyone to ask any question around the areas that we feel impact us as members and delegates. We have representation from lands, from agriculture, finance, and the CFU and markets as well. So if I may ask I will call out the panelists individually and ask them to take their seats. If I could ask PS Jiri, please, if you could take your seat on the panel. Thank you. PS Mutondi, if you could please take your seat, sir. Mr. Phil, if you could take your seat. I would like to call upon Graham Murdoch to the panel from FCCA, PHI. If you could give him a round of applause, please. Is Esther Chigumira around? Yes, there she is. Esther from the World Bank, a round of applause for her, please. If I could ask Rangu to come up if he's around. Okay. Hi. Do we have Dr. William Kabila from the Reserve Bank with us? Okay, he's here. If you could give him a round of applause, please, from the Reserve Bank. Okay, so our panel is set. Just to say thank you to all our panelists for taking time out to engage with us. I will hand you over to Rangu, who will moderate the panel discussion. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Thank you. It's always nice to hear farmer voices speaking back to you. I've been asked to facilitate this panel discussion where our guests have moved from the hard seats to the hot seats, which are red. But it's not a hot seat at all. It's a relaxed conversation we're going to have. My name is Rangu Nyamurundira. I'm a lawyer by profession. But in my past life, I've worked closely with farmers. And currently as well. I used to be the CEO for the National Indigenization Board until about 2017. That's where I met a number of farmers. And in that past life, we were responsible for economic empowerment, which government is pursuing also currently. And that's how I view farming, from an empowerment perspective. And that's how I've managed to engage quite a number of farmers currently, especially in the Chegutu area, where I've been helping to structure the citrus investments within Chegutu. And interestingly, this involves old farmers and new farmers, where they're coming together to try and come up with a structure that works to then have more production in the citrus sector. So that has been quite interesting, and even the issues of title deeds as well have come up, and we've been trying to come up with innovative ways of bringing everything together, where we've got the new farmers that don't yet have title deeds, but as you know, citrus requires a lot of land. So the investors who are the old farmers who used to be on some of this land have then wanted to go in and invest together with the new farmers. So we have been engaging the Ministry of Lands, I think since about 2023, and got full support from them on how we can come up with structures that work. So I'm quite excited to be here, and I've also been engaged with Liam as well through HDC, and it's been quite interesting to try and come up with these new innovative ways that address the historic issues that you were raising as farmers and that government is trying to sort out for the farmers, and also how do you take farming forward. So this panel is going to focus, I think, on those critical things. It's going to focus on land, issues of title. What are some of the issues that are coming up, the questions that you're going to have on the land issue. It's going to focus on agriculture, and I'm sure this speaks to productivity on the land. How then do we enhance agriculture in our country and move forward as the agricultural sector? It's going to focus on financing. How do we then get capital into agriculture so that we can have that growth that we all want? And of course, the tenure is critical to that, so they're all linked. It's going to speak to markets as well. How do we then, as we see growth, how do we then access these markets, secure these markets? Again, it's all interlinked. I remember one of the experiences I had with a client who wanted to export. A term that I then became aware of because of that engagement was contested land, historic issues as far as markets are concerned. So these are all things that as farming in Zimbabwe, as agriculture in Zimbabwe, we need to address, and we can speak to that today. So thank you very much. So as farmers, you all know that we need foresight. We need to know what is going to happen in future. We need to know the weather. We're speaking of El Nino this year, hoping that God decides otherwise. And as farmers, we're also very prayerful, so that's a good thing. So we might not have that. We pray we don't have that. So what we've done for our panelists, we've also given them a bit of foresight and shared the questions, the main questions that would like them to address. I'm sure they all got the questions. If you didn't get the questions, I'm sorry. It might turn out to be a hot seat, but I'm sure you all got the questions. So we're going to have on land first, that's Professor Matondi, who's going to speak on the land and representing the Honorable Minister who couldn't be with us today. And the question there is two questions. There's been significant progress towards issuing title deeds to farmers, still in operation and in possession of offer letters who have agreed to forego compensation in return for title on their remaining portion of land. From a rural development perspective, what would you envisage the impact will be if we are successful? And then the second question, we understand that title will ultimately unlock capital flows for farmers. Will your ministry be engaging financial institutions to identify and iron out any obstacles that may frustrate the process? And then Professor Jiri, who is going to speak to agriculture. The questions there are, please would you outline the key pillars in the summer cropping plan that your ministry has developed with stakeholders, and outline what mitigating factors are recommended to achieve the most out of what will likely
be a season characterized by an El Nino weather phenomenon. And then the second one, large-scale farmers are typically well-tooled, and some are fortunate enough to have significant irrigation capacity. The value chain is not very rewarding with the cost of production and geological risks. Are there specific focus areas that the ministry is working on to enhance viability and encourage farmers to ramp up supplementary irrigated summer production? And then for Ms. Chigumira from the World Bank, what advice can you give farmers in preparation for accessing concessional finance? What regional trends are you seeing emerging from financing agriculture? And then Dr. Kavila, financing mechanisms. We hear that we are making good progress under the SMP. When we successfully complete the SMP, what impact do you see that it will have on our agricultural value chains, and what lead time for the benefits to be realized? What alternative funding strategies could farmers or organizations explore to unlock affordable short and medium facilities? Are there any strategies in the pipeline to support the agriculture industry as we move into what looks like a strong El Nino season? El Nino coming up again there. And then the last panelist, that's Mr. Graham Murdoch. The FCCA plays a critical role in both financing farmers and marketing their crop. What challenges are you facing as FCCA with financing your growers in the current environment, and what measures could be put in place to increase production by 25% to 30%? As we enter the summer cropping season with the forecast El Nino weather phenomenon, are the futures markets trending upwards to reflect potential regional shortfall? And what advice do you have for farmers with irrigation capacity for the 2026 and 2027 summer season? In your opinion, what measures need to be taken to unlock the much-needed liquidity in the productive sector? So those are all the questions that, the initial questions that have been asked of our panelists. So immediately I'll ask our first panelist to speak to the land questions. Dr. Matondi, please.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Thank you very much for those questions that I didn't receive. And but anyway, thank you for that. Let me say, today, it is almost 30 years when I started engaging on the successor program to the first phase of the land reform program from 1980 to 1986. And to 1996. And in 1996, fortunately, I was part of the team that we engaged with the Commercial Farmers Union and other farmers union, including the British government and other donors. And in that year, that is the year when we received a letter from former Foreign Secretary Claire Short around the responsibility for the land reform program. And it was a daunting undertaking. And on that basis, a political decision was made that we needed to have a successor program to the first phase of the land reform program, which we then defined in elaborate detail to acquire about 5 million hectares for redistribution. So we had already had an experience around offering letters to farmers. And at that stage, we had already offered about 3.6 million hectares acquired to smallholder farmers on the basis of a permit system. And that permit system, that was and is still at law, was then transitioned to what you have as your offer letters that farmers hold. But the legal structure, you are a lawyer, the legal structure and its performance on the ground in terms of unlocking or locating investment and financial resources into agriculture was quite obvious. And we were aware of that. And going into the fast-track land reform program in 2000, we were aware of those very facts, which is one of the reasons why the elaborate documents we had designed for the successor program were set aside in 2000 in preference for a 3-page that launched the fast-track land reform program. And that then offered a series of land offers of different ranges from that time up to today. So farmers of all kinds, they possess all kinds of offer letters, diagrams, and everything, which makes it extremely very difficult to say how do you migrate from these offer letters of different types and the 99-year leases into a proper title. How do you take all that body into a proper title that provides rights, opportunities, and confirm tenure to holders of tenure documents that are required? That's the most difficult part, because everyone possesses this paper called a title. But at the end of the day, what matters is what is on the ground, my friend. And on the ground, that's where, as I said earlier on, we are just faced with a series of disputes on boundaries, on property, and all of that, which makes it very difficult even for financial institutions to react positively when it comes to financing. And therefore, with that understanding, on the 10th of October 2024, the President then launched the title deed program as a basis for addressing those anomalies, to say how do we unlock financing into agriculture with a stronger title. And that stronger title is to be issued to all classes of farmers across all tenure regimes. That's the undertaking. And that program then started. The numbers, as I said earlier on, have been very low for the reasons that I explained earlier on, to do with the existence of official tenure documents that persons might be holding, the existence of actual occupation of that land that we might assume is owned by somebody else, and this is what complicates the matter. So after sitting for a couple of months, we have agreed as the new leadership of the Ministry of Lands and Rural Development that we need to have one single land registry for the whole country. That speaks volumes in terms of what is this land? Do you know your land? That's the question that we are asking. And for that, we require a resurvey and demarcation of all properties in all tenure regimes, commercial and non-commercial, for the purposes of understanding if we could come up with one single land registry. That is uncontestable. For that, it's a negotiation process. It's a mapping exercise of the historical past and what we need to do now, because we don't know who's where and what they are doing with the properties. Then if you try to go to the financial institution, they will tell you the same issues. We have got 5 banks that are participating in our title deed program. They are increasing to about 7. But after some weeks of backwards and forwards, we are probably opening it up to other more banks because of structural problems that we are experiencing in the steps towards the issuance of the title deed. So if that then is the question around the financing part, the banks are ready. But for us, we are not ready enough to send through the properties into the system. So the offer letters that people are holding, they can hold them, it's fine, but the title deed will subsequently overtake them. It is that procedure to get to the title deed that faces all these difficulties. But where we are saying that farmers who had title deeds before can go into an alternative space where we negotiate for offsetting. And the offsetting, in lieu of having had their offered the land, and in some cases paid for 99-year leases, and it is those that would then help them to transition into the title deed program based on their genuine will to participate in this program. There are issues to do with conveyancing, issues to do with statutory fees that are associated with conveyancing. All those things will still be up for discussion, and we negotiate of what was paid, what was not paid, and what is still owed to the farmers, and what the government has promised will be the long-term duration of the payment of that. So I would say that this is what will unlock the opportunities if we have got a good land information system and a good digitalized land administration platform that enables the enhancements of the market transactions that we're expecting out of the actions we are undertaking.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Maybe just one quick follow-up question.
Yes.
Regarding the title deeds themselves. Once a farmer applies for title deeds, goes through the process, gets title deeds, what's the nature of these title deeds? Are they the usual title deeds that we all know at law, where I can hold my title deed, I can be able to transact, go to the bank, put it in as security, or if I wanted to enter an agreement with someone else regarding farming activity on that land, are they the usual or normal title deeds?
Yes, it is the usual, securitized title deeds and digitalized. The procedures are the same as getting a property in an urban setup. There's no difference. So you've got your usual qualification systems for the title deeds, involving Minister of Agriculture for looking at issues to do with productivity and valuation of properties. We look at the settlement patterns, surveys, diagrams that are involved in coordinates. Then you go into the conveyancing under the Minister of Justice through the deeds register, and that conveyancing is then part done by the lawyers. It's not done by government lawyers at the moment. It is being done by private lawyers. Then it goes into the whole procedures, and then it becomes a securitized title deed, which you then can take to the bank. Some of the banks are participating in this process from the word go.
Okay, thank you so much. Just to also say, I have a few clients, farmers who are still on the farms, who did apply for the new title deeds, and thankfully it was then under Professor Jiri, and he did sign off. I think it was sometime in May, about 5 of them, and I'm happy to say that 2 days ago, 2 of them actually came through and signed off. They're based in Beatrice. I can't reveal names. I'm sworn to secrecy, but 2 of them, that's a good progress, I think, because a lot of them, at least that I'm representing, have been saying, look, we want to be part of this new program. And once we have our title deeds, we are then able to start reinvesting onto the land and carrying on with our agricultural activities. So thank you for that.
But I just want to clarify between yourselves as lawyers who do the conveyancing and the banks. There are issues that needs to be addressed in these steps for you to be able to negotiate. That's why we have said we are perhaps better off opening it up to more banks and more conveyancing lawyers, because there are cases where applications have been made and they've been held into the system for too long, when we know that the capacity to produce title deeds is probably literally 2 weeks if all things go well. What we have also done is to go back to look at the ecosystem, infrastructure ecosystem for the delivery of the title deeds. We have done now 2 vaults for the land information system and also for the storage of the title deeds themselves when they come up. But believe me, we want to give the best title deed, probably the best in the world, and for that we are going for the jugular. We have reviewed issues to do with survey fees, conveyancing fees, for instance. Our strong view now is that we must pay market prices that of an international nature, both for our A1, A2 farms, anyone who was offered land before. There were subsidies that were discussed, but that's not the true value. If a title deed in Zimbabwe is worth this much, and an American, a European, an Asian title deed is worth so much, then our Zimbabwean should be equivalent. It shouldn't be undervalued by any form of subsidy. It must stand the test of time and the test of its true value. That's how determined we are to make this title deed work.
Thank you so much, Professor Matondi. Can we ask Professor Jiri to come in and share some thoughts, especially on this El Nino phenomena that's anticipated? What measures is the ministry taking in that regard?
Thank you. And let me recognize Liam for ensuring that I'm here today. And colleagues, I will try to summarize what I have in my head, which is what I'm working on for these last few months, but I'll summarize it in a few minutes. So the El Nino is certainly coming. So, unfortunately, science is about facts. So that's what the models are saying. And so the drier season is coming, which we must prepare for. The ideal situation was for us to have had prepared for this when we were younger, but here we are. We still need to prepare for it with a few months to go to the season. So we have prepared a plan as a government, which we think will assist us in mitigating against this phenomenon. Of course, let me hasten to say that those with irrigation don't need to worry about this phenomenon. You just worry about high growth rates, that's all. So this really speaks to us, the unfortunate who are unprepared. So we have 6 points that we have put through to try and navigate around this phenomenon that's coming. The first point is, of course, to preserve our strategic grain reserve, both at household level and at national level. And at household level, we are really encouraging households to preserve and keep some food so that with the prolonged dry spell, they will be able to go through that. We're also looking at avenues in which we can enhance our own national grain reserve through preserving what we are producing now, what we're harvesting now, the last summer, and also what we will produce in this winter for wheat, and of course focusing on the next winter for wheat. So really preparing to ensure that we raise our strategic holding to at least 500,000 metric tons, which will carry us through to the next rain season. The second aspect that we are looking at is climate smart agricultural interventions. So emphasizing on our Fumvudza trust for households. So this really speaks now to dryland. So a majority of our farmers who are on dryland, they must embrace Fumvudza. So the aim is to ensure that we increase the acreage that is being put under Fumvudza from the average that we normally do of about 500,000 hectares to at least 1 million, which most of the smallholders are doing. So that's the first step. In line with climate smart response as well, is to ensure that we increase the acreage under irrigation. And I'll speak a bit later to that later on. But suffice to say that we need to increase at national level the land that we are irrigating. And that is how we can effectively respond to the climate change phenomenon. Of course, we also have targets to increase in a bit of, in a small way, the hectare that we currently have from under summer cereals, maybe from 70,000 to about 90,000, because that's all we have for summer cereals for our food security. The rest, of course, goes to tobacco and plantation crops and so forth, building up to the 259,000 that we currently have. Third intervention is to look at how we can look at finance models for the summer season. We ordinarily break down our planning and our funding for summer into 4 or 5 categories. So the FCCA, which Graham leads, is very important to us. So we want to see how much private sector participates. So we push that funding model. We also want to see what the Vudza programming will bring in, as I've alluded to. We also want to see what the banks through the National Enhanced Productivity Scheme, NEAPS, will bring in. The CBZ, AFC, NMB ordinarily participate in this scheme. But they are also self-financed farmers. The majority of those are also here. How they can be assisted to ensure that they focus on production. So looking at how we can incentivize those farmers that are growing maize and cereals this season, we ordinarily work on a cost plus pricing model, and we ordinarily put 15% above the cost. We will incentivize farmers that grow maize this season with a cost plus 25%, just to motivate the farmers to be growing the cereal that we want. The fourth intervention is on livestock interventions, which we also know that ordinarily we don't focus on livestock, but livestock is a big sector in our agriculture. So there are a whole lot of interventions that we are doing for livestock, from the health side, the feed side, and the water side. And we have segregated these according to livestock type, but also we have really gone down to the ward level to say which wards are being affected and to what extent. So that's how we are intervening. And we're also sourcing feed to be able to send to the critical areas, but also encouraging farmers to do the needful ahead of a harder season. The fifth intervention is on imports of grain, because if we don't have enough, we certainly must import. So we have put in place, I think, the famous SI 87 to say we are not going to close our borders, but we will watch what's happening, but with an aim of ensuring that what millers and stock feed manufacturers would ordinarily import, they should focus on how they can support local farmers to produce. So we are watching that. And of course, most of you have seen how back and forth we have been with these millers who, of course, have an appetite to import cheaper grain that's being produced across the borders. So imports are also quite in the agenda, because we know we may not produce enough. The last intervention is that of early warning, coordination, and confidence building. It is our country, we are here. We must ensure that all the farmers know what's coming with the right information. We have emphasized that we must not panic, because this is a naturally occurring phenomenon which is not starting this year. But we are emphasizing this year that we must be prepared for what's coming, make the right decisions, agroecological tailoring, water rationing, and all those interventions. So the early warning systems are very critical, and we are on that front where we are doing early warning and building confidence that we can pass through this phenomenon once more. Of course, these 6 pillars that we are tracking, they should be private sector led, and of course government facilitated. There will be chairpersons who run with these pillars so that they are effectively implemented at national level and sub-national level. At the national level, we are also tracking a set of enablers. So those things that would make our interventions work. So we have a list of 23 enablers, which of course include irrigation, water, and power, cloud seeding, and all those kind of things. And of course, this is where we also emphasize on irrigation development and those things that we can assist to ensure that our farmers get access to irrigation. So we do have a lot of facilities. Just getting to briefly on the second question, a lot of facilities for irrigation that we have. But what we see is that the water is in the dams, and that's not where we want it. We want the water in the farmers' fields, but the cost is that of conveying, getting the water to where we require it. And that is what, as government, we are now tackling. It won't be effective for this season that's coming because it's only 2 months away. But going forward, we should be able to expand and accelerate irrigation development in a big way. Of course, the facilities are ordinarily there. What we try to do is to ensure that there is nothing for free, but it should be as concessionary as possible. Agriculture, at the end of the day, must be a business. And if anybody is investing in irrigation, they must see the business of doing that. I think in summary, I've done well for... Thank you very much.
Yeah, indeed, you've done well, Prof. Thank you so much for that outline. We can go straight into, because some of the things you're raising, I like the part about the private sector and also financing. How do we actually bring in funding, financing, and the private sector to participate with our farmers as well, with government policy, and then invest into this? And this is why I need Ms. Chikwamira to come in and give us her thoughts.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, being a World Bank person, I always look at numbers, right? Just to see, are we doing the right things in development? So when Liam asked me, and I could not say no, he's really been a great friend of the bank, I came up with this, I saw this estimate in one of our World Bank reports, which is very optimistic for Africa's agriculture. And it says the agribusiness sector is expected to exceed, in terms of monetary terms, or become a $1 trillion industry by 2030. That's for the whole of Africa. Then there was something that worried me. The next thing I see in this report is that there remains an agricultural financing gap of over 100 billion. And it disproportionately affects commercial farmers, agri, small, medium enterprises, women, and youth. And I thought, all this time I'd been thinking it was a Zimbabwe issue, but we see it quite broadly. So bringing it back home to Zimbabwe, where we have the SMP that has been signed and the steps forward, and our RBZ colleague here will speak to it. I thought, well, what is the big thing that keeps my principals at the bank awake at night? How is it that Zimbabwean farmers can prepare for when we see that brighter day? Because we are seeing it in countries that I'm working in, Rwanda, Malawi, and Zambia, where there is concessional financing that is being used to bridge that gap, to allow commercial farmers access, agri, small, medium enterprises, women and youth access to financing. So when we are looking, I always say, to that point of Chiedza, that sunshine state for agriculture, what is it that we need to do? What is it that we need to prepare? So discussing with my IFC colleagues, those from the International Finance Corporation, who work more closely with the private sector, whereas here I work more closely with my client right next to me here, within the kind of the policy framework as well as with smallholders. I thought we both, from the IFC as well as the bank side, said, well, there are principles there that can go across. A lot of you are commercial farmers. You probably are running entities. This may not be news, but I think it's important that I still go through the 6 steps. You shared your 6 steps, so I'll be sharing my 6 steps plus an additional step. So the 6 steps to getting concessional financing from development financing institutions include this, and I remember saying this at the Horticultural Investment Forum. First step, establish credible financial records. Lenders, and it's very important here because concessional financing is not charity at all, right? It is a risk-adjusted capital that lenders deploy on specific conditions. And as a farmer, as a business, you've got to be bankable. So the first step, establish credible financial records. What we have seen in Kenya, Ghana, and Zambia, where I've been working, the single most common thing that is rejected by DFIs is the absence of basic financial documentation. So I would start today in terms of putting together the requisite. What do we require? At least 2 or 3 years of audited or reviewed accounts. This includes income statements, balance sheets, cash flow statements, and evidence of debt service history. So that's one. Establish credible financial records. The second is build a business plan, not just a production plan. What we are seeing now is funders, particularly DFIs, so the World Bank, Africa Development Bank, the Europe Investment Bank, they're looking for value chain clarity. This is very critical to show your commercial viability. So they want to see the market linkages, the pricing assumptions, the offtake arrangements, the risk mitigation strategies, not just the yield projections. The third area, address collateral constraints creatively. Prof. Matondi, you've spoken about you working on the land titling, and I've put the word creatively, right, because Zimbabweans are creative. And so some of the things that we're now starting to see DFIs do is looking at alternative collateral mechanisms which are accepted. So we are seeing them accepting movable asset financing, so your equipment, livestock, stored commodities are serving as collateral. We're seeing them moving towards warehouse receipting systems, and I think we've got that sorted in Zimbabwe as well. They're looking at financing through offtake agreements and contract farming. So we're seeing that a signed contract with a credible buyer, whether it be a processor or exporter, can substitute partially for physical collateral by demonstrating, and that's the thing, what it is doing is demonstrating revenue certainty. The fourth point, understand and comply with governance requirements. Now, in the past, people have looked at environment, social, and governance issues, ESG, as kind of like, well, we just need to comply. But development financing institutions are looking at that as a very critical area because it then shows them, is that farmer, is that business going to be sustainable? Do they have the right basics within, whether it is soil management, water management, chemical applications? And also, just the ESG is now being seen as ways towards syndicating loans with commercial banks. So it's not just, oh, well, we'll comply. It is, you must do it and you must show it in order to get that development financing. The last area, as you prepare for this, is know what type of financing fits your needs. Not all concessional financing is the same. So you have, I've just kind of put 4 areas here. You have term loans for capital investments, so irrigation equipment, land development. You have working capital facilities for seasonal inputs, partial credit guarantees through in what we would call in a lending country IDA-backed guarantee facilities, so the World Bank guaranteeing those facilities that allow local banks to lend to farmers at a reduced risk. I think one of the key areas we've heard is how interest rates are very high within the banking sector. The last area of what type of concessional financing exists is blended finance instruments that combine kind of a grant component with a commercial loan. And we're seeing a lot of movement towards this kind of grant component and commercial loan. The sixth area, know what existing programs your development financing institutions are supporting and try and fit into them. Now, the question you would then say to me, well, Esther, how do I know this, right? But you are part of a network. I was talking with someone and I said, you know, strategically, I would actually find a former DFI employee to work with, either bring them on your advisory boards, put them on the board, because then you will know and understand how the development financing institutions work. Bring on a consultant who's worked within this DFIs and work with them to say, hey, as we prepare, what is it about my business that can access this concessional financing? So the last point here is that what I think my key takeaway as I was working on this with the IFC was, how do I access concessional financing, right? That's the question I started off with. How should they access? It is, how do I become the kind of business that concessional finance is designed to support? I went through those 6 steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we move in straight to Dr. Kavila?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I got excited when you started this meeting with a prayer. Thank you very much for that. So I'm going to be talking about the staff monitored program. I don't know whether that is really a common language. I'm sure it is. Farmers are very clever people. So the government of Zimbabwe has agreed on the staff monitored program with the International Monetary Fund as part of the broader policy measures under the Structured Dialogue Platform. I think you've heard about the Structured Dialogue Platform, which is really aimed at resolving the debt issue. You know, the debt, outstanding debt has been a problem in Zimbabwe. This is what is making even the concessional financing probably difficult to get because of the risks associated with the country, and also that we cannot access finance officially from the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank because of the debt that we have. So this is one of the steps that the government is taking to actually try and normalize the situation. So the SMP, which is a non-funded program, is expected to lead to normalization of relations with international creditors, both bilateral and multilateral, and as well as the international financial institutions. The successful implementation of this program is actually very critical to resolve the debt payment arrears and also unlock concessional financing. I think the IFS has been actually giving us money to inspire the private sector to actually finance the agricultural value chain in the yesteryears. I'm not sure that it is still available, but I think the whole idea here is that with this SMP, we are going to create a track record of prudent macroeconomic management, which is what is required. Now, what the SMP here is a critical reform agenda under the growth and stability pillar of the Structured Dialogue platform. So it is one of the three. When it comes to the issue of the lead time from the success of the SMP to actually having an impact on agriculture, this will depend on what we'll have done on the other two pillars under the growth and stability pillar. We have two more, which is governance reform and land tenure and compensation. In other words, we've got three pillars, three parts of the pillar: the SMP, the governance reform, and then the land tenure and compensation. So the way we are going to be moving and succeeding or fulfilling these three will actually determine the way forward with respect to what is going to happen to our agriculture financing. Now, in terms of alternative funding strategies, which farmers could actually access now, we have the Targeted Finance Facility, TFF, to finance, which can be borrowed by banks, by farmers through their banks. We are actually aware that this money is expensive in terms of the current interest rates, but if you look at where we are coming from and where we are going, it's really understandable. What we are saying and promising the farmers is that as we continue to sustain low inflation levels, we also are going to be able to be reducing the bank policy rate, and in tandem, we expect banks to also reduce the farmers, to reduce interest rates on on loans that they give to farmers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Murdoch.
Thank you, moderator. Just to highlight that I think the three questions that I was posed basically lead into each other. And the most important one is actually the third question, so bear with me while we lead up to that. So the first question is around challenges to finance and growing the crop size. And I think it's important in terms of this fora to highlight exactly what the FCCA is. So the FCCA basically is the Food Crop Contractors Association. It's a loose grouping of private sector contractors who focus on financing and ultimately marketing of essentially row crops, maize, wheat, and soya. And as FCCA members, we are occasionally a little bit frustrated by the fact that our contribution is not always recognized. And I was very grateful to Professor Jiri for actually mentioning the FCCA in his presentation. But the reality is, if we take today's figure, which was presented by Amma this morning, 214,000 tons of maize has been marketed through the formal channels today. That excludes GMB, ZMX and others. And of that 214,000 tons of maize, the vast majority of it was actually produced by FCCA members and contracted by the farmers that are financed by FCCA. And it's taken us a little while. We are getting there. That the FCCA is recognized as a contributor towards industry's requirements for food security. Government obviously has to look at the entire country, and their focus is primarily on food security throughout the country and primarily in the sort of rural areas. But it's important to note what we as industry require, or what industry requires, that we as the FCCA feel we are contributing to that. Similarly, we're very frustrated with industry. Government for some time now have quite rightly been asking industry what contribution they are making to primary production, not the purchasing of the crop, not the storage of the crop, but the actual primary production. And as FCCA, we're very frustrated with our partners in industry in that they don't recognize the role that we play in assuming the risk on their behalf. And that is something that we are working on, and that we are looking to government through instruments like SI 87 to encourage industry to play a greater role in actually financing primary production. And lastly, we are occasionally frustrated with our farmers who see us as either leeches or very difficult to access piggy banks. And the reality is that we are all in this together, and there are reasons why things happen, and I'll come on to them later on in my presentation. But to highlight something that will be the common theme throughout my contribution is that we have to increase the viability of row crop farming. And without that, we're not going to see all the other things falling into place. We need primarily to focus on our cost per ton specifically. Just by way of an example, it's probably a fact that's well known to all of you, but I'm taking the opportunity to punt the facts and figures to the PS to my left. Our cost per ton on producing irrigated maize in this country is in the order of $325 a ton. That's our cost. And that doesn't adequately cover all of a farmer's overheads. The cost per ton to produce a ton of maize in South Africa is $139 a ton. And it's impossible for us to compete with a farmer in South Africa who's producing a product at $139 a ton. And therefore, although one of the pillars in terms of dealing with the El Nino drought that is coming up is around imports, we need to understand that disconnect between our cost of production and the cost of production in a place like South Africa. We see the FCCA as being able to play a very critical role in basically managing things like concessionary loans. Along with Liam, who has been a huge asset to us as the FCCA, and I'd like to think that we have been to him in his role as president of the CFU, we've often been discussing with the likes of the Bankers Association, with the likes of international financiers, how we can access concessionary finance for primary production. And we're constantly being told one of the problems is how do we ensure that money lent to a farmer actually generates tons of maize or tons of soya or tons of wheat, and doesn't end up in a townhouse or a nice new car or whatever it may be. And the reality is that we'd like to highlight the fact that the FCCA can play that role in monitoring the distribution of funds and the likes of things like diesel and other issues. Market pricing and stocks regionally. There's obviously some belief that we're going to see a bump in the price of some commodities as a result of the understanding that El Nino is on its way. I need to just temper your sort of enthusiasm there. The South African maize crop in 2026 was 17.2 million tons. That is, out of interest, was produced on less hectarage than we grew maize on in this country. And that is against an annual usage of around about 8 million tons. And that's excluding any carryover stock that they had coming into this season. So the reality is that there is unlikely to be any strengthening or rise in the price of maize from South Africa until probably 2028. Zambia, they produced 4 million tons of maize this year and had a carryover of 1.5 million tons. They've got an election next month, and the feeling is that once that election is out of the way, they will be looking to move some of that maize because they have effectively run out of reasonable storage. And we're going to see a drop in the maize price out of Zambia. Therefore, just to highlight, we're unlikely to see movement in the price of maize in the short term. And therefore, in order to encourage production of irrigated maize this season, which is critical for this country's food security, we need to be protected against cheaper regional imports of maize. There is some light at the end of the tunnel in that we are already starting to see the effects of El Nino in the US, and as a result, we've seen an unexpected rise in the price of soybeans. Import parity of soybeans for the majority of our marketing season was below 550, was circa 510 to 520. We're now seeing prices, import parity pricing of soybeans today in excess of 600. And it's believed that it will remain at that level through the next marketing season. As a result of the fact that the war between Russia and Ukraine has now turned very much focused on dealing with how they're generating money to run their war efforts, in the last month or so, we've seen substantial attacks on Russian shipping and Ukrainian shipping carrying wheat. And as a result, we're starting to see very firm prices around import parity on those wheats, which is commensurate with our quality of wheat. It's termed soft wheat in this country. Coming on to how we can then utilize that regional picture in terms of what we should be doing in 26-27 summer season, as Professor Jerry has highlighted, the focus must be on producing irrigated maize, and it's nice to see that there's an incentive being focused in order to encourage farmers to grow irrigated maize. I'll come on to my version of the disconnect just now. But what I would say to you as farmers here is it's worth noting that the demand for maize has changed as people's diets have changed. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the country is currently utilizing 35,000 tons of rice on a monthly basis. That is impacting directly the amount of white maize that is being used by the commercial millers. So we're seeing a reduction in the amount of white maize required by the commercial millers, and we're seeing an increase in the requirement of maize from stock feeders. Now, some years ago, the stock feeders adamantly were not interested in yellow maize, all sorts of bull dust about how it discolored the color of the skin of the bird, etc., etc. But when the price of maize, yellow maize in South Africa, suddenly was $80 a ton cheaper than white maize, it didn't matter whether you ate a yellow bird or not. Suddenly yellow maize, everyone wanted yellow maize. So the advice here from a maize production point of view, from a commercial production point of view, i.e. maize that's going to go into industry, you should be starting to think about yellow rather than white. So the final question that Liam posed to me was measures to unlock liquidity. And I want to highlight something, that if you take total industry's maize requirements on an annual basis, which is circa 1.2 million tons, that's maize milling, stock feeds, Maputi, the breweries, and the likes. You take the total soybean requirement, which is circa 330,000 tons on an annual basis. You take the total requirement for soft wheat, which is also between 300 and 350,000 tons, and you translate that into commercially produced hectarage. The reality is, and it's a very frustrating fact, is that we only need around $600 to $700 million per year to ensure that industry is fully serviced by locally produced commodity. And I find it frustrating in an environment where we are generating in excess of $13 billion a year by way of exports, that we cannot produce, or cannot find $600 million to provide concessionary finance for the production of commercial crops going into industry. Having said that, we need to understand something. Nobody, whether it's a bank, whether it's industry, whether it's a member of the FCCA, is going to invest into something that is not viable. So we have to tackle the issue of cost of production. Finance cost, it's been discussed ad nauseum. It's right up there. Fuel costs. I don't know if anyone is really aware, but the duty cost on diesel translates into $35 a ton worth of your wheat price, is the duty that you're paying on diesel. IMTT constitutes somewhere close to 8 to 10% of the cost of your fertilizer is built in IMTT. The fact that the fertilizer companies are no longer zero rated for VAT, they're now VAT exempt, that all translates into an increased fertilizer price to you guys. Zinwa, the PS quite rightly indicated that water has to have a cost. But the reality is that the current cost of Zinwa, $10.76 per megaliter, 5 megaliters per hectare on a winter wheat crop, translates into $9 a ton to your wheat price. Those issues need to be addressed. They need to be addressed quickly in order to make you viable, in order to make you more attractive to someone to finance you. I talked earlier about what I refer to as the market disconnect. And to put it bluntly, because I know I'm probably overrunning my time here, but the reality is that all sectors, including CFU, including FCCA, including the millers, including the stock feeders, we spend quite a lot of time prior to every cycle, every cropping cycle, discussing the producer prices that will then ultimately be announced by Cabinet and by government. And the problem is this, is that there is no mechanism to incentivize industry to pay that producer price. And that producer price is not sucked out of the sky. It's based on cost of production and allowing a fair return to a farmer. We've got a situation right now today where the maize price at GMB is $364. Yes, it's split 70-30 between USD and ZIG. But market prices right now, as we were told this morning, are in some instances as low as $250. It's impossible for a farmer to survive on that. We have to find a way of basically removing this market disconnect, and it cannot always be by virtue of a stick. There has to be an incentive involved. And just to highlight that Liam and I have been working for some time now, over a year, in making recommendations, proposals to address that issue. And hopefully, with the focus on El Nino, we might get there. Talking about financing in specific, I've talked about the 600 to 700 million that we need. It would be nice to hear from my colleague from the Reserve Bank why it is that we can't have a mechanism whereby we can access strategic reserves. They're currently earning the banks nothing, no interest at all. So the banks could onward lend to us at very low rates, below 10%, probably even closer to 5%, even building in some risk factors, and everybody would benefit. Yes, there has to be some controls and some measures to ensure that those funds are not abused, but the money is there. It can be made available. We don't always have to rely on international lines of credit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much to our panelists. I think what we've just learned there is that farming is more than the soil and the heavens. It's an art, it's a science, it's economics, it's market, it's a business. And we need to understand all those things that come into farming and agriculture. So any questions from our farmers for our panelists before they leave? Please, can we have some questions? I'll start from right at the back and come up.
Thank you very much to the panel, and thanks for the opportunity to talk. This one just goes out to the cost of finance, where we, as farmers, you would think that I'm just taking 2025 coming into 26 season as an example. What does it mean when it comes down to a farmer? I think we had quite an unusual year last year coming into this year, where Reserve Bank was lending to commercial banks at 30%, then the commercial banks putting on their 15% markup and risk factor, landing to us farmers at about 45%. So 45% when you're growing cereal crops, and you're looking at a 25% incentive to grow to increase the maize production. And most farmers then will end up going into penalty interest rates, and which is another 10 to 15%. So is there anything that government could do or Reserve Bank could do to address this historically? Because one season's problem goes into the next year's production, amongst the other things that Mr. Murdoch has brought up there, about seeing how we can bring down our cost of production. Thank you.
I'll have a second one, then ask the panelists. There was a second hand. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Niels van Jordan. I'm a farmer from Chinoy area, Alaska. And I'm very pleased I was here today, specifically to hear the Permanent Secretary talking about land reform program is complete. However, in the last 3 weeks, there's 2 farms in our area, which include mine, where we've been approached by the Provincial Land Reform Office and telling us they're going to want to downsize our properties. Although the properties sustain multiple families, said no, it's because it's from one family. They have to downsize these properties. Is this coming from the Minister's office, or is this just some individual that wants to get some political mileage out of this?
Thank you. I'll put it to the 2 profs. Maybe you can answer those.
Mine is very short. Yeah, they are not receiving any instructions from the national office. That's as simple as it is. If you hear of such cases, please, you've got access to us, and we will clarify the position as it stands. So, thank you for that.
And in regards cost, I think our 25% is our starting point. But what's going to happen now is our series of engagements with Minister of Finance, Treasury, the farmers, FCCA, and so forth, to sit down in a committee which then recommends the actual markup that we're going to put. But of course, in terms of the cost of finance, I think the finance gurus are able to respond to that.
Reserve Bank, any comments on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the addressing the historical issues. It might not be possible, but I'm actually surprised that I don't know whether you're borrowing from TFF at 45% or what. The gentleman asked the question: did you borrow the TFF facility, or not that one? I would advise you to borrow through the TFF, where now the inclusive interest rate should not be more than 20%, because we actually lend to banks for all lending to farmers and other private sector players. So I'm actually shocked by this 45%. I don't know where it is coming from. Maybe we're not borrowing from this facility. There's a facility which is there, a special facility for you to be able to access through your banks. That would be the all-inclusive interest rate of 20%.
Well, thank you. Just one more thing. If you add to this fact the point of deflation, then again it increases it even further. And I know everyone was expecting inflation to continue, but luckily our currency has become very stable. And but the effects of the finances has worked its effect on anyone that did borrow to put a crop in. I'm not actually talking personally, but I'm talking other fellow farmers.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Any questions? So it means it's been very... Oh, yes, the gentleman over there.
I'm sorry not to prolong the debate, but I was hoping with this esteemed panel that we have there, and perhaps our colleague from the embassy was hoping to hear how this title elixir is going to fix the capital borrowing issue. So just to quickly illustrate, to grow a crop of 50 hectares of tobacco, I need to borrow $500,000. Add in some desperately needed retooling capex, maybe $250,000. I need to borrow $750,000. If I approach a bank currently, my title, if I buy it from the government, which is what's expected of me, on a 200-hectare offer letter in region 2A or 2B, close to a urban center with irrigation, I'm looking at $1,000 a hectare. So that's $200,000 that I have to borrow from one of the 7 banks that was mentioned. Those title deeds are now encumbered for the next 20 years to the bank that I borrowed the $200,000 to buy my title. How then do I use that encumbered title to borrow $750,000 to grow a 50-hectare tobacco crop? I was hoping that's what we would hear today.
Yeah, I think that's an important question.
So the title deeds man is here, but let me also just try to respond. I think title deeds by themselves will not unlock everything. I think that's one thing that we must also accept. At the end of the day, we were discussing a few days ago with Liam, Graham, to say that it's a confidence issue on both ends, where we must see the banks having confidence to say where, even though there's title, but where is this agriculture going? What is this farmer going to be doing? So at the end of the day, it all boils down to that relationship issue that the bank has with you, the confidence that the bank has in the title deeds, and it may not take just the printing out of the title deed. It takes a longer time. It takes much more than just printing out a title deed. But Prof, you can add.
Yeah, it's all to do with certainty. Certainty comes from knowing our land, knowing your production system, and of course, our preference in the long duration. We have had these cycles, or even financing, short-term financing. It has not worked. We know from offer letters into leases, and now our proposition is that we want to give you full rights, the bundle of rights that you are entitled to, and across all tenure regimes, across all sectors. So, to do that, we require to know, as I said earlier on, what is our land. And we had almost completely a collapsed land management system. Because we don't know with certainty your land, where it is. He says, as we are still speaking, as we speak, someone is on his property and trying whatever replanning they are doing without any instruction from anyone. That's the case that you get throughout the country. But how do you get back to recontrol that? And then to reissue and to issue you a title that gives you certainty. That's why I said reference should be to the one single land registry, which we use as a basis for a national land use plan, which currently we don't have. I can't even predict and tell you that when it comes to spatial planning, where your property is located, is it going to be part of agricultural land or not? Number one. Number two, how are we going to plan for our transportation infrastructure, just as an example, where we need to put our airports, where we need to put, like he does, our dams. They are existing, but there are others that are planned in the next 20, 30 years. But we should be having a predictive tool that we use for land use planning. And of course, the title deed is not going to lock opportunities for everyone. Some will be able to access finance from banks, but we want to give you the complete bundle of rights that you deserve, so that you know where your property is, you know how other people are excluded or included in the planning of those properties, how we enforce the rules and the legal rules that we have and the constitutional undertaking to protect the rights that we have, and how we adjudicate when conflicts arise. Without that, it's difficult for farmers to be able to do what they need to do on a day-to-day basis.
So, sorry, if I may just, thank you so much for that input. If I can just come back to your question. Are you speaking to the use of the title deeds to secure in two instances? For example, to secure getting a loan from the bank to pay the title deed purchase price, if I heard you correctly, and then also to secure, for your farming activities, if I heard you correctly.
Correct. So in let's say 25 years ago, I'd take my farm title to the bank. They would lend me the full amount to grow my crop. I'd borrow my money from the bank, which surely, ideally, that's what we want to get back to. Right now, most of the farmers in this room are contracted either to a tobacco company, to a contract row cropping company, etc. We feel, or maybe I feel, that at times we feel like indentured servants. So Mr. Murdoch says we want access to the piggy bank, unfettered access to the piggy bank, but at the same time, that's how we feel. So ideally, what we want is the title to be secure enough that we can borrow from an independent financier, grow the crop, sell it to the off-takers through those access. But right now, my title is going to be encumbered because I have to borrow the money to buy the title. So I can't borrow against the title because I already owe, let's say, Bank ABC the money to buy the title in the first place. So they're not going to release it to me to use as collateral to borrow. Sorry to prolong the debate.
Sorry, my understanding, because I think it's a technical thing.
Yeah, it's a
my understanding, when we're talking about the new title, right? It's a new title deed. I think it's less cumbersome for you than the banks that had your old title. Because if it's the new title that government is issuing, it's not encumbered. It's not held by anyone because it's not been released. It's being released to you directly as the farmer. And what is happening there, according to my understanding, government is saying if you're a farmer who's always been on the farm and were given back your farm, you can then use the set off. That's an option. It's one option where you can set off what you're owed to then pay that title deed purchase, the new title deed purchase price, and not go to the bank to borrow money. And then maybe a question that I had from some clients who have asked is, in some instances, you've got a farmer who's owed money by compensation by government, and then maybe their son or relative then got land from government, the offer letter. And the question there is, can I use, if I'm not the farmer that's on the farm, can I use what I'm owed by government to then help set off a farmer that's on the farm?
That's exactly what we're trying to negotiate, and where we have got an MOU that we have designed for that purpose.
Okay. No, thank you very
much. So on a case-by-case basis, we can.
Yes. So these are just some of the options that can be considered and looked at to resolve some of those challenges. Sorry, we're running out of time. We're way beyond. There was one question. Yes, ma'am?
Professor Jerry, can we come back to cost of production? And let's talk about the elephant in the room. Both you and the gentleman from the Reserve Bank. There was a time where we paid in levies and taxes on the fuel coming into the country 5 cents a litre. And we are not paying 5 cents a litre anymore. And that impacts not only on our farmers, but on our industry and on our services and on our people and everything. 80 cents, 58 cents, please, gentlemen. It really needs to be reviewed and reviewed quickly, because we can no longer survive paying $1.89 and $1.93 for our fuel. We cannot blame Hormuz. We cannot blame anybody except our security and the people that are in our own country, making sure that money that should be profits for the farmers and the people are going as profits to people that shouldn't deserve that money.
Thank you. Is that our last very key and important contribution? That we must prioritize our farmers? Oh, sorry, there's someone else.
One more question, and it's probably the most important one.
I'll judge. I'll be the judge. But please
Okay.
go ahead.
There's 3 points. Local infrastructure in farming areas. Retarring of roads. Back in the day, we used to get good hospitals. Ambulances used to come to the farm, rescuing our labor force. No longer around or no longer available. The other thing I think that we need to do in the country is prioritize our farmers. You know, if our trucks get to the offloading queue and he's number 32 in the queue, and then he says, boss, no, there's some South African trucks that have arrived. And then it's 3 days in the queue. We cannot prioritize South African trucks over our local trucks. Okay? And then the transporter coming to me and saying, we need to charge you another $5 a ton for sitting 4 days in the queue. It can't be. If you guys are really serious about agriculture in the country, you will put our farmer trucks at the front. Lastly, it's not only farmers who are on farms, okay, and looking for title. There are a lot of farmers who don't even have a farm and looking for new land. After your land audits and however that's been going, have you got new access to more land? Or I'm looking for some munda.
I think yours was important as well, very important. We'll allow them to...
The second question, prioritization will be given. We'll issue that instruction right away.
And for the first one, I think the 84th conference of the CFU will be accounting for our raw development, raw industrialization. And certainly we have to audit and account for what we would have done. I'm hoping that we'll stabilize the land sector and go to raw development and address all those, the first and the third one.
All right. Well, I'll just wind up by saying thank you so much to our panelists for taking time, all of you, from your busy schedules. We have had immediate results. That's the importance of direct interaction. And we thank you so much, and we hope this direct interaction continues through CFU and through UFU. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Sorry, hello everyone. I know it's been a long session, but just a reminder from the program, there is just the presentation of the farming Oscar, and I think then vote of thanks before we close for lunch. If you wouldn't mind just giving us a few more minutes, we'll try and keep it short. Sorry for that.
Excuse me, if you could just take our seats and move on to the Oscar, just 10 minutes will be done. I apologize, our time has run by. If you could take our seats, please. Thank you. All right, if I could invite the Vice President to present the Oscar. Thank you.
Everyone, thank you for your patience. Sorry for the time running over. So it's now my great honor to read out the speech for the Farming Oscar Award. So the Zimbabwean Farming Oscar was introduced by the late C.G. Tracy in 1961. It's an award in recognition of those who have outstanding service in the advancement of agriculture. The 2026 recipient fits the required profile well. He has devoted a lifetime to the advancement of agriculture through research, education, innovation, mentorship, and practical farming. His career spans more than 5 decades, during which his unwavering commitment to the tobacco industry and to the agricultural development has earned him the admiration and respect of colleagues, farmers, and fellow professionals alike. Born in Mutede in August 1948, the eldest of 8 children, born over a span of 17 years, he developed from an early age the values of leadership, responsibility, and service. Educated at Chancellor and later at Plumtree, in keeping with family tradition, he distinguished himself both academically and on the sports field. An accomplished hockey player, he served as head of house and continued to excel as a goalkeeper through his university years. In 1968, he enrolled at the University of Natal in Pietermaritzburg, where he completed a Bachelor of Science. In university vacations, he gained valuable practical experience with Connex in Mutare, laying the foundations for a career that would make a lasting contribution to Zimbabwean agriculture. Following graduation, he joined Connex in Marindera before transferring to Salisbury under the guidance of Richard Wingfield. After completing a year of national service with the British South Africa Police, during which he was stationed in Udzi, he married his wife Mel in 1974, beginning a partnership that has remained a steadfast source of support throughout his remarkable career. Together they raised 2 children, Sean and Nicola, and today delight in spending time with their 5 grandsons in the UK and Ireland. While serving with Connex, regular visits to Harare South under the Ian Burton, together with time spent at Trelawney Research Station and Kutsaga Research Station, ignited a lifelong fascination with tobacco production. That interest would become the defining focus of his professional life. At the same time, he remained an enthusiastic sportsman, playing cricket for Harare South and Old Prenicians. Never content to rest on his achievements, he pursued further studies, completing a diploma in agriculture extension at the University of Rhodesia before undertaking a master's degree at the University of Reading in 1977 and 1978. Returning home, he joined the tobacco branch at Kutsaga, strengthening his expertise in tobacco research and production before spending a year in the commercial sector of research agronomist with RFC. In 1981, encouraged by Dr. Henry Papunfus, I might be getting the pronunciation wrong, please forgive me, he joined the Tobacco Research Board when his passion for research flourished. International study visits to the United States and one to Brazil under the Archie Henson Trust broadened his knowledge, while his own historical research began in 1982. Involved comprehensive surveys of 40 commercial farming systems in Beatrice, Norton, and Tengui areas. Some of his research included comparisons of tobacco ripening stages in relation to quality and yield to maximize returns. In 1985, he was awarded a Doctor of Philosophy by the University of Zimbabwe, a milestone that reflected both academic excellence and practical relevance. His advice on curing is world-renowned and has made consultancy trips to Greece to help with their curing and quality. He continues to assist growers with their curing, and more recently has become somewhat of an expert on tunnel curing regimes for difficult crops. In 1988, family duty called him back to the family farm following his father's diagnosis of leukemia. For the next 12 years, he embraced farming with characteristic enthusiasm and resilience, successfully managing arable enterprises through difficult drought years while pursuing his particular passion for wheat production. Never afraid to innovate, he diversified into paprika, mange tout, and granadillas, while planning a significant irrigation development before the land reform brought those ambitions to an untimely end. Even during these demanding years, he maintained his annual fishing trips to the Zambezi and developed into an accomplished golfer, achieving a handicap of 8. Following relocation from the family farm, he lectured at Blackfordby College for 2 years under Dave Baxter, generously sharing his knowledge with the next generation of agriculturalists. Between 2003 and 2006, he worked in Zambia as a consultant, providing invaluable guidance to emerging commercial farmers during a critical period of agricultural development. Returning to Zimbabwe, he spent a further decade contributing his extensive experience with northern tobacco, continuing to influence agricultural production and farmer development. Even after formally retiring in 2021 to reduce the demands of long-distance travel, his dedication to agriculture did not diminish. During the COVID-19 pandemic, he authored comprehensive online tobacco training manuals, Back to Basics, and a companion manual on tobacco curing, ensuring that vital technical knowledge remained accessible to growers. Today, he continues to advise clients through consultancy work with Premium and ZTA, while generously providing practical guidance to farmers through modern communication platforms. Throughout his distinguished career, he has exemplified intellectual curiosity, professional excellence, integrity, humility, and an enduring willingness to share knowledge. His influence extends far beyond the farms, research stations, and lecture rooms where he worked, living on through the countless farmers, colleagues, and students whose lives and livelihoods have benefited from his wisdom and generosity. It is therefore with profound appreciation and immense pleasure that I present the CFU Farming Oscar Award for 2026 to Mr. Robert Trail Garvin. If I could please ask Graham to come and receive it in his absence. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan, and congratulations to our Oscar recipient for 2026. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors for this event. It's important, in Shona culture, we see the warmth or love from how many visitors attend your house. So if you never have a visitor, then question mark, something's wrong with your home. So we want to appreciate those that have come to support us. Our bronze sponsors, Paula Kim, Serena Funeral Home, and AgriSeeds. Our silver sponsors, Bright Insurance, National Tested Seeds, and Bestchul. Forgive me if I said that wrong. Then our gold sponsors, Kristen Zimbabwe, NMB Bank, CP Chemicals, and Seedco. If we could give a round of applause to our sponsors. Thank you ever so much. Just a point for lunch. If you could get a ticket by Rebecca at the back end, she's waving there. Those that have a good appetite, you're free to like 3 or 4 tickets, so feel free. If I could just, if you could indulge me for a minute just to give the vote of thanks. As actors in the agricultural space, we all carry an important responsibility. The discussions we had today, the resolutions debated, and the decisions we will make going forward will influence not only the future of the Union, but the future of organized agriculture in Zimbabwe. To those in our midst that have gone before us in the CFU, you have left behind a legacy and a memory and a method of management and endurance. Let us safeguard the interests and the legacy that you've led. I ask that we embrace the dawn of the new chapter in agriculture. Let us come together to build a strong, inclusive, broad-based, and relevant organization that will serve us, our nation, and the future generations to come. With those remarks, I would like to say thank you once again to each and every one of you for your attendance, for your participation, and your continued commitment to agriculture. I thank you. Sorry, I declared the Congress over. Please will you join us for lunch?